No.
Wait, what about now, Nath?
3,
Go for
2,
it. Yep.
4, 7, 12.
Yep.
Go. Bang.
Welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to Age of Sigmar Mondays. I'm joined by Nathan Prescott.
Hello, hello, hello.
And I'm joined by
Is this thing
Mr.
on?
Dan. No one can stop him because he says they can't say.
I do say that. That is the thing that I say the most, is that I say you can't. So it's good to know that other people are now catching on to that.
You
People
can't
have
stop
heard
the
it.
rock. That's what I say. Big shout out to everyone who's joined us live in the chat. Diadrin, Arepa, MJ Pegasus, Gitley, what up? Gabe, Owen Jackson. Oh, nice to see him here. Hey to BMW 335XI. It's very specific. I think a car has joined us on Twitch.
It's very good at typing, given that it doesn't have hands and only has wheels. I'd love to know what army a BMW plays. Just I mean, if you're there in the chat, would love to know.
Yeah,
Night
please.
Rider and Airwolf.
Those aren't armies, Nathan. Those are TV shows. Hey,
They're
buddy.
armies.
How are you doing? You all right?
They're armies.
Okay. So hello to Donaldino in the chat as well. Lovely. Zide guy. So it's Squigs. He says vroom vroom. Squigs vroom vroom.
Yes, the most mechanical of all of the armies. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm in no way surprised that a
Oh,
destruction
MJ
player
Pegasus had the best one there.
said-
Caradron Overlords.
Nice. Really nice.
Yeah.
Really
well done.
nice. You've revved us up. Good job.
Oh, I hope we
Oh.
don't get tired.
I just don't want the show to take a wrong turn. That's it. Right, so hello everyone, welcome to the show. Obviously, we are all going to be finding out what percentage of the Gobblepalooza Nathan has finished painting this week. And then, for the rest of the show, interesting that my show hosts don't know this, this is a show based on what occurred earlier on in the day in the stream streak. We are going to be talking about, in the main segment, the best aesthetic in Age of Sigmar. It's a little challenge that I'm going to give to Nathan and Dan, and it's going to be a really fun time. And we'll talk more about that later. But first, before we do that, obviously we should jump in to see how our show hosts are and find out about the news. That was really professional. Well done, me. Dan, how have you been and what's been going on?
I've been good. The chat will be very happy to know that I have returned to my roots, and I haven't been doing anything elf related this week. So I'm going to dislocate a shoulder, pat myself on the back there, and just give myself 3 brownie points.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Have you put the elves on the shelf? Is the elf on the shelf?
The elves, they're not on the shelf here. They're in the shelf in the cupboard just temporarily.
Okay.
I did notice how quickly the chat started giving me shit about that. So thank you. Good to know that I've always got you guys on side. No, but with the impending release of Gargants, my Greywater Fastness army obviously needs one, or better yet, 2. So I'm starting with the core of Pentient engines for them, and then I'm using lots of like Stormcast and Steam Tank and KO bits and stuff, and making myself a couple of driven Gargants, which is
Nice.
what I'm working on at the moment to go with all of these guys. So yeah, they're coming along. They're coming along slowly but surely. But I also realized with my Lumineth that the vast majority of the conversion bits I needed are from old but absurdly expensive kits here. I don't know if it's the same over there. Like I need Graveguard and Hex Wraiths.
Ooh.
And when I looked at and I had a bunch of the bits for them because before I left Australia, there was a box, I think last Christmas, or the Christmas before, sorry, 2 Christmases ago, that had those kits in it. And I managed to between myself and someone else, we bought a couple and split them. So I had all these bits, but now I've used them, and now I'm stuck without them. And I looked and I was like, oh, I'll just get them. They're an old kit. They're probably not going to be that. Jesus, how much for 10? So now they've just been given a little moment while I look deep into my soul and think about what I've done, committing myself to an army using all of these parts.
Mm-hmm.
And I've moved on to greener pastures.
Oh, okay. So you're waiting until a delivery of more parts comes.
or until I can afford the delivery of more parts. That's the one. That's the one that's a little tricky, but we'll see. We'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be great. It'll be good. Everything's going to be wonderful once I get off my Gargant little mobile, and then I'll get back and figure out what's next for my undead elves.
Well, I mean, you've pushed us into a conversation about the Gargants, or two topics of conversation that we're going to have to cover, I think. First one, obviously, question as to where James Powell is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, most people will know if you've ever watched me and James stand next to each other doing T-Sports commentary, or like or just seen him. He's not the tallest fella, roughly 4'2", and most people mistake him for Johan. And so he heard the Gargants were coming, and he just ran. He just ran away. Like Johan, he just kept running, and he's terrified. He's messaged me. He said he's in Land's End. He says he doesn't reckon they can get him there. Then I told him that there was a Kraken eater, and he was like, oh my God, maybe they're near the sea, and he's kept running. So that's where he is right now.
I heard he was in someone's pants. Like he'd just been inserted.
I mean, that's incredibly spot on, actually. But like, that's a whole different conversation.
I realized I went too real there. We got too close to the sun, and we've been burned by the truth.
The truth always comes out.
Always.
Yes.
We're not called the honest wargamer for no reason in it.
No, we're not. No, we are not.
Truth always comes out in the pants.
Yeah.
That's where you know. That is where you know.
That's where the truth is. The truth often, some people believe that the judges are always sitting down so that they can make level-headed decisions. They're actually always sitting down so that the truth is contained and controlled underneath their posteriors.
So just a little quick. Oh no, I won't go on. I'm not going to say that. Doesn't matter. He's gone. He's gone, but he'll be back. He's gone, but he'll be back. Not sure when. Not sure why. So who's the new guest on here with Dan and Nath? Oh my God. Okay. All right.
He's actually here to talk to us about the new release of Underworlds. The what is it? The something of death.
Chasm. The diachasm of death.
Okay, let's get this somewhere back on the road. But also, big shout out to the fish in the chat. I thought Powell was Baby Yoda. Maybe he could be Baby Yoda, but like he'd have to sit on a box or something for that. Anyway, Nathan Prescott, how have you been?
I've been good, thank you. Keeping busy, dodging and diving. All the usual sort of stuff. Yeah.
Have you played any Warhammer this week?
Yes. I had a quick game against Dan.
Oh, the English master.
The master son. I think it's one of his first games of the new General's Handbook. Uh-huh. So we tried out the Blade's Edge. I ran a double Gargant list in preparation.
Good.
For Gargants. And he ran 3 Frostlords on Stonehorns.
Oh, God.
And a big unit of Gluttons and stuff. So, yeah, they was fairly tight at the beginning, but eventually they ran over everything. And, but it was great to play the Blade's Edge again. It's a really cool mission. I enjoy playing it. So quickly becoming one of my favorites, I think.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah. Thank you to Gursey for subscribing, by the way. And thank you to everyone for joining us. Big love to all of you. Have you done any hobby this week, Nathan Prescott?
I have dug my gits out, so that's why I was playing with the gits. And at the moment, I'm painting some more spore splatters and some more sneaky snufflers.
Ooh.
For my grot based list, really.
We
So, yeah.
we were talking about this off air last week, Rob. So you may have missed this conversation, but we were talking about Spore Splatters, and I love them because their models are for me they're more disturbing than the fanatics, right? Like you just look at them, I'm like, oh, there's something not cool about the organics. But I saw ones that were even more disturbing and more intense because someone had painted up the spores themselves in a very realistic flesh tone with veins, and I'll leave your imagination to what that made it look like they were swinging around
Boobies.
and splattering people with
Oh,
Very nuts.
a little bit wrinklier.
Speak for yourself, mate. Mine look like a freshly cut leather coin purse. Yeah, smooth. Yeah, like Nathan's head. It looks like upside down.
Anyway,
Nice.
so that's what I saw them as, and since then I can't like once you see something, you can never look at it the same way again. That's basically where my brain is now with that. I can't unsee what I have now seen. But spectacular models, love them to bits.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, so that's where my head goes every time I see them now.
Yeah, they are. They are a shape. Let's be honest. And Nathan, we've got a game lined up on Wednesday. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, you are going down. You are going down. Yeah. I am
Cool.
going to take a subpar Skaven list, and it's going to be really fun. That's only if, though, I can find... So, a little interesting hobby note for everyone. Since I talked to you guys last week, the decision last week, which it all got cut off because it's Tinternet. But I wanted to tell you about 3 new lists that I want to try and get ready and start playing with ASAP. One of them was
because you were struggling, weren't you? You were like found yourself between armies and couldn't find the emotional fortitude that you needed to commit to any of them.
And based on most of my romantic relationships, committing is an issue of mine. So, what? Call myself out, can't call me out. That's how it works. I started, this week during the stream streak, I was painting stuff up, and I just happened to hit my stride with the Skaven. Ended up with 60 clan rats already painted, which is fun, 40 storm vermin, and then I've just started doing my vermin lord. So my warp seer, which I'm very happy about there. But the 3 lists I wanted to talk about, which I'll just recap for you guys quickly, was I really, really want to do a Skaven list, and just generally Skaven, Doom Wheels, Storm Fiends, Rattling Cannons, a whole bunch of stuff. But yes, the Love Rats is what I want to do. I want to bring them to life and get some like heart transfers, the whole kit and caboodle. It's going to be very fun.
Heart transfers. I just said heart transfers. That's amazing. Well, they are the Love Rats. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, exactly. They're just the cutest, right? And so, yeah, I'm going to find some love hearts, stick them all on the shields, really trigger some people. It's going to be a great time. But the other 2 lists that I wanted to talk about was a Staliart Lords Dagash list, because I just think that would be the most fun to build and paint. So that's probably going to be my next list, because it just, I think, would be really, really fun. Plus, I rarely use, like, a big boy. I don't know if you've ever run down on Nathan, like an Archeon, an Agash. I've used a Lariel before, but I was never a fan. But, something that takes most of the points up. And, I've never ran any of those big models. Have you ever ran them, or what have your experiences gaming with or against them?
Fun. To be honest, there's something really fun about committing a huge chunk of your army to one kind of linchpin model. Because it basically does that thing on the table where you put it down and you're effectively saying to your opponent, either you have a way to deal with this or you don't. And that's where a big chunk of the game ends up being about. It's a bit like when Marathi's on the table, not to quite the same extent, but when there's that one huge model as well, it also gives you like a cool challenge hobby-wise too.
Yeah. I think hobby-wise, I'd be very excited about it. But more importantly, I like, it's one of the things that I struggle with is that big, like, Nathan will tell you, and everyone who's ever watched me play Warhammer before will know that I play very defensive and castle-y. Like, I've got a very kind of like wall with arrows sort of motif going on. A kind of slings behind the front line type of guy. I'm a mortar guy, is what I am. Yeah, I'm
You're
just
a little bit prickly.
Yeah,
you're a hedgehog.
Exactly. Right, but I've
Would
never
you like
tried.
to build a castle? That's
Yes,
for sure.
exactly. So I'd like to build some lists that work differently to my normal playstyle. My Skaven, which I initially obviously ran to, already are exactly my playstyle. 60 clan rats, there's some counterpunch in there, and then there's some shooting. It's just a classic me. I've just done myself all over again. So I'd like to break out that mold, I think, and play something else. So Stanley Outlaws and Nagash should be a really fun one to do. And then the other one, just with loads of Death Riders. And then the other one that I think would be really, really fun to do was a list today. Over the weekend, there was a TTS event, and Iron Gutsman Mitch ended up, I think he only won 2 games in total, but 5 out of 6. But it's the Winter Bite list where you're -1 to hit in your own territory against shooting to try and stop the KO Alpha and the Seraphon Alpha. And
yeah.
And then if you get off the spell from the Firebelly, another -1 to hit AoE, so that you're -2 to hit. Yeah, so that would be super fun as well. But it's also got no shooting and is really combat-y, so that would be a fun build to play. I don't know if you guys have, Nathan. I know you always have a mixture of stuff, but normally very fighty. Dan, have you've I know that you've done shooty and fighty. Do you have like
for my guts, for my ogres, all combat, no shooty. But yeah, usually I try to have a nice little balance, but there's something fun about it as well when you just go, this time I'm not doing the thing I normally do.
Yeah. Like, have you, Nathan, do your armies all play the same? I'm trying to think. No, because your Uruks play very different to the Gits, right?
Yeah, so the Uruks are a lot more aggressive. But the Gits, I
also
often
play those aggressively.
Yeah, I often look at the way I play the Gits and think that I don't play them aggressively enough. Right. A lot of times I'll look back on games and think I should have just put the buffs up and bloody charged in instead of dawdling around the shrine and stuff and doing whatever it is the hell I was doing. So I guess, I do tend to play combat-y armies, although the Tempest Eye, obviously the dwarf, whenever I play with the dwarves, I do have some shooting. Probably not as much shooting as traditional dwarf lists are. Even in their previous iterations, I did like always having units of hammerers or big blocks of warriors or longbeards with great weapons to do some chopping stuff up duty. So yeah, I do like the melee. Do they all play the same?
I don't think so.
Yeah, probably slightly different, but I wouldn't say they're that different. Yeah, I do tend to use a lot of. I tend to move around a lot. My pieces. I don't tend to play a very static game. Or when I do, then I don't play very well. That's for sure. I feel. So I think the best games I play are when I'm actually moving around. So.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's the really interesting thing about how we play Warhammer and identifying your own style. I think that's quite key. And you have to play a lot or be involved in games a lot to even really understand that. The only thing I could ever say as advice, because I do think it's genuinely good, and I'm really hoping I learn some stuff from it, from switching up my style, is not only learn how to play those armies differently and also learn how to play differently, but also try and unlock how other people play with those armies, so that if I'm up against them with my preferred style, then I'll know what jutsu to use against them. My jutsu versus their jutsu. Make sure I get the right jutsu, so understand it. That's everything that I was going to say last week, but condensed down really quickly, to be honest.
But have you been doing any hobby? Like in getting this Love Rat list together, what are you hobbying for it? Is that a Vermin Lord in your hand right now? Is that the Supreme's Love Rat?
He's basically done. Yeah, the Vermin Lord Warp Seer is done. I've done 60 clan rats and 40 storm vermin this week.
Wow.
So 100 bodies done. I just haven't done the bases. However, I have hit a bit of a hobby. I've taken a hobby gamble, I think is the right term. And I don't know if anyone has used this stuff. So they're all super glued onto square bases, which I paint on and then transfer them to the rounds, which I make them make before. So normally what I do is I put milliput on a base, then I spray it black, and then I dry brush it white, and then I do lava. Super simple. Altboy Phil, thank you for subscribing, and Reflex DT, big love to you. However, I, as of yesterday, ordered black milliput. So hoping to cut out having to spray paint them black and cut out a whole level, which is brand new stuff. Has anyone tried it? Have you tried it, Dan?
No.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Well, it should be. So normally, like I say, I normally use yellow milliput. So you take the two bits, you roll them together like putty, stick it on the base, I chop into it, kind of make it like gravelly and lavary, and then I spray it. But I'm hoping to avoid having to even spray it this time, which is quite cool. And then if a bit chips off, it'll be black still. Yeah,
true. So your undercoat's effectively just as written. It's already done. That's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, I haven't got it yet, and I haven't. So when I do get it, I will like update the chat. But like that's pretty funky as like a starter base.
Oh, are you still gonna paint the yellow and black on for
the lava? Yes, boss.
Yeah. You probably still need to spray it black anyway. Then.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you'll need to undercoat it or something so that the yellow and black paint stay on better.
Oh, balls. What if I just paint it on then seal it?
Oh, you can do that, I guess, but I think it's still a good idea just to prime it.
Oh, everyone in the chat is also agreeing with you, Nath. Balls. I really thought I'd like stepped out an entire like hobby step there. I was like, I was a fucking genius. I was like, this is great. Also, like save yourself a lot in spray paint. Fuck. Okay. Never mind. Back to the drawing board.
It's interesting, just to jump back a conversation where we were talking about Tempesai, and War Machine 7 in the chat just saying that it was so much fun playing against Tempesai dwarves. One of the things I find really cool is I anticipated both Tempesai and Greywater Fastness to play really shooty, like core shooty lists. And I found that they actually do balance and combat more. Like my Greywater list is mostly focused on a couple of shooting units that are tooled to be really, really good, but the rest is all combat. And same with Tempesai. I thought that it was just going to be movie shooty dickheads. And instead we get a lot more kind of creativity there. So it's kind of cool that the lists that I would have anticipated to be mostly shooting have been like a good blend.
Well, it's such a good buff, like extra movement and a save. Like who isn't gonna like any unit really benefits so massively from that. So it's a really good, it's just a good buff generally. Cancel that hobby cheated video. I was going to do a whole guide. Yeah, Black Milliput was going to be me. That's what they were. That was going to be my stage name, Rob Black Milliput Symes. But unfortunately, it's gone by the wayside now. Yeah, I think cities lists are still super cool, and there's so much to unpack in the cities art book still, which is why I'm really excited about going to the Skaven, because I still think there's loads to unpack there, like what kind of teams and. Nathan, I'll let you into a little secret. Dan, I'm gonna let you into this too, because obviously you're here too. I'm having some machine guns 3D printed for me. And I am gonna make literally dozens of rattling cannons. Dozens.
Yeah, they're so cheap now, aren't they?
It's gosh,
60 points, and I'm gonna get like 20. No, not 20, but like 13 at least. Yeah, and it's going to be amazing. Worst army in the world, but I can't wait. And it's going to convert them, and it's going to look 11 out of 10.
That's cool.
Right, so big news. Big news in Age of Sigmar this week, everyone. Big news. The biggest of news, actually. The Gargant. The Gargants are coming. It looks like there's an article gone up today, so we probably will see them teased this week with pre-order happening on Saturday. Pretty fun. Nathan, you excited? Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm excited. Finally. I bet they are several months overdue, so good.
Is that like a big baby?
Big bastards. Come on, Let's go.
Will you be getting one? And if you are getting one, which one of the Gargants will you be getting?
I'll definitely get one of the big fellas. Even if he just goes in my other armies. Possibly invest in doing a Gargant army itself, but we'll see how that goes, depending on funds and time, etc. I still like the war one, the one with the horn. What the hell's not the Kraken or the other one?
The Gate Smasher.
No, what are the three types again? So you got Gate Smasher, Kraken Eater, and War somebody or other.
Steve. I think the last one's just called Steve. Yeah,
I'm with Steve. I'm taking Steve. That's the one I like.
Intern Matt. Don't write Backdoor Smasher, Intern Matt. What the fuck?
Backdoor Smasher. That guy. No,
that guy.
No, not the Gate Breaker. The bugger. I've forgotten his name. But that guy. I like the guy whose name I can't remember. Yeah.
Okay, that guy. The war one.
The one
Why
one
does
with
no one in the chat know the name?
The one with the leather daddy mask. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
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 I'm excited. I'm very excited to see what the story is, to be honest. Like, I think that'll be really, really fun, and I think that they'll go all out for just making it a fun romp. And I don't mind a good old romp. I'd also very much like the rules to include Johan. Very much like the rules to include Johan.
Like a blot toad, right? Like a bloat toad. He runs around and they get better when they're near him. He's like,
yeah. He's the endless spell that they have. They pray for Johan. Yeah. But he's a prey. And they pray for him, and suddenly he appears, and then they chase him around.
I would
and ignore the other army altogether, and they win if they catch him. It doesn't matter what the scenario is. If they catch Johan, they win.
It would actually be amazing if
they play a different game.
It'd be amazing if they worshipped him and they thought he was their god. And so they're just running around trying to catch him.
Yeah.
And he's running away, and the more they go, the faster they run, the faster they all just, that'd be like, can we just make that law? Yeah. I know that there's probably rules writers who put a lot of work into the law, but that sounds good to me. So let's just do it.
Fuck them. That's the law now. We're in.
Search of Johan. We're all believers. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
We'll go knocking on the door. Have you heard about Johan?
Yeah, have you heard of our Lord and Savior?
Have you seen our Lord and Savior Johan?
What I would like is all the Gargant players. I'd like it to devolve between like those pro Johan and those anti Johan. Like,
would you call them pro Han?
Nice. Yeah, very good. And then them to have wars, and then eventually, end up with
the Johan wars.
Yeah, the Johan wars. That would be great. Where some Gargants believe he exists and others don't believe he exists, and they battle over the myth of the Johan Wars. Oh my god, Dudo Shortgate, 11 out of 10. Pro Han or no Han? Those are the two factions.
Can we should definitely have a poll up, and some kind. Scrivo needs to do an artwork to go on a shirt. Like, I believe in Johan, and like the Johan is a lie.
On the back of the shirt.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited whether or not they're a great army on the tabletop, which I feel like it would be almost impossible to create a good army out of 3 or 4 Gargants on the tabletop. I really do. Like, obviously they're going to have a rule where they score objectives very much like we see with Beast Called Raiders, so Stonehorns and whatnot. So that's going to have to be in effect for them to be competitive. But I don't think any of us really give a shit if they're going to be competitive. No one's like...
Absolutely not.
No one. 0 people. I don't. No one does. We're just going to... I actually argue that, like, personally, for me, it will just be about how much stuff gets put in pants. That's the tally. That's all I care about. Special prize. Like, you go to a tournament, it's a competitive tournament. Everyone is, like, looking for all their placings, and then there's just another prize where it's who put the most stuff in their pants, Every tournament, it's like best sport, best painted, most stuff in your pants, first,
Fullest
second, third.
pants.
Yeah, fullest pants. And we don't change. It just happens all the time, right?
It'll be like the loaded trousers award or something like that.
Yes. Yeah. And every TO does it. Just every TO. They're like, fair play, Gargants. I believe in the Johan. I'm pro Han.
Yeah. Make Johan great again. Mayor hats.
So Rumor Mill says Mega Gargants can kick objectives. They definitely can. 2d6 inches in the hero phase. Boof. 2d6 inches away. So that's exciting. That is exciting. But whether or not that'll be very impactful, because like what you're gonna kick one objective. They'll be like one Gargant, it kicks one objective, and then like the rest of a proper army will be like, we're stood on these other 5, dickhead. What are you gonna do? Like, is that
What's your plan now? Look, I'll level with you. Didn't think that far ahead.
Yeah, this is
I'm gonna kick it again. Look, bang.
The plan ended at kick. After that, it was mostly just of a dick move where I'm like, you have to go another average 7 inches to collect this objective. But no, that was as far as I got. And then they get shot to bits by rattling cannons.
Yeah. And also, like, measuring it's going to be hard. Now, I'm not saying it's a conspiracy theory that they've invented an army that can kick objectives and James Powell isn't here. Not to be seen with the objective markers anywhere in the world. But maybe he's inventing new objective markers that can be kicked. Don't think that's a thing. But next week, let's ask him.
Yeah, they're spherical, i.e. they're footballs.
Kickable objective markers. This is what we need. Can we put the merch grot on this immediately?
He's out there experimenting right now. He's just stood on a beach kicking objectives around, just moving around it. Like, what the hell are we gonna? Like Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That's exactly what he's doing. Okay, so predictions on, I guess the predictions on the power level of the army, but no one cares. I'm gonna go for 2 out of 10.
Rubbish. Yeah.
S tier.
S tier, yes, Nathan. It should be the P tier, though, realistically.
They're going to be garbage, and that's not a bad thing either. It's okay. I think that's while we would love to live in a world where every single army is always the most dick-kickingest, amazingest thing in the world, there's nothing wrong with having a few armies that are just good fun. That are just out there. They look sexy. They're fun to put on the table. And I think that's what they're going to be.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that. Nathan, anything to add?
Well, do you think we'll see, because you can take one of the dudes, some special character dude in any army, can't you?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see many of that dude kicking about?
It depends. Unless maybe you could build some sort of obnoxious build where you intentionally kick your objective towards you. But I
or
feel
towards another objective, then they're too close together.
Yeah, so I saw some wish listing today in one of the WhatsApp groups I was in, which I thought was fun. And it was like, well, they need to have something where they like to represent their survivability, like a battle trait, something along the lines of damage 1 weapons just can't hurt them. They're like, well, this isn't going to hurt me. I'm massive. Like this. I mean, they need something that's like truly brilliant. Because when you've got, like, if you look at the Corn Dragon's like, yeah, lol, look at me, look at all my wounds. And then someone else is like, I am going to do that in a hero phase. You're fucked, son. Like.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. How do you kind of reconcile that against a big old dragon that's going to cut your head off in 30 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be really tough for them to write the rules for them where they're competitive but fun. Not that I think they'll just, and I'd rather they just went for fun, personally.
Yeah. Agreed.
So then, DP Banks, thanks for subscribing. Speckles, big love in the chat. Definitely getting a big dude, 4 dragons, and 1 giant list done. How do you do it, Speckles? How do you put these lists together? It blows my mind. What you mean, skink bolt splitters couldn't hurt a Gargant? I think that would be a cool rule, right? No
for
damage,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, no damage on weapons can hurt him. I think that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun. That would make them competitive, but like I don't know, interesting. I'd like to see some little heroes going like to fight them, like all your support characters. Like, I did you 3 damage.
Well, I think even if the rule was just they reduce all damage by 1 to a minimum of 0, as opposed to, you see other rules that are like they reduce damage by 1 to a minimum of 1.
Yeah,
I think that would be cool. Or the other thing, if they had the old school Stonehorn rule where they halve all damage received, like at the end of the phase, you take the damage they've received and they halve it. That would also kind of work for me too.
yeah. I'm not getting my hopes up though, because I really don't think that they're going to be brilliant, but they look awesome, and that's all that really matters. If I had the cash, I'd be all over it, but they're going to be there for a long time, so I can get them at some point in the future, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Also, I am very excited for all the conversions that we're going to see in the future coming out of that kit. So many that there'll be like a baller Tree Lord Ancient coming out of that. That's going to look really fun.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, that'd be cool.
I want to see Mega Archeon. Somehow someone's like kit bash that with like Archeon, or I don't even know what. That and Nagash mixed together. I think you could do some really fun stuff, right?
Yeah. That would actually... A Tree Lord Ancient, like a part, like Gargant Tree Lord Ancient thing, that would be incredible. Just like a Gargant that's wearing a Tree Lord is what I'm thinking. Like he's ripped it apart and put it on as like pants. He's like, look at my scratchy trousers.
Yeah, that would be fun. To do a Gargant that was like really like earthy, like gone like druid or shamanistic, get him like a big cloak, stick loads of tree bits on him. Yeah. There's just going to be some bonkers ones. A zombie giant for death, Diadrin. Exactly. I think this is I think a lot of people are it's gonna sell out. I imagine they're gonna sell out, but maybe that.
I think again they're not going to be the most powerful and incredible army in the game by any stretch of the imagination, but they're one that captures the imagination. So I think for that reason, everyone's going to want to do something in regards to them, and I think that's really cool.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. And sometimes, whatever. Okay, so some tournament results. I already talked about the tournaments earlier today on the show, but just a quick one, Nath. 6-0. A Seraphon list went 6-0 early on.
That's a surprise. Fuck me. Wow.
However,
nobody saw that coming.
However, in a fun little mix-up just for you, I thought you'd be interested to hear this. There was only 10 skinks in the list, and there was no skink Star Priest and no skink Priest. It was a Dracothian's Tale with 2x10 Saurus Guard, a Slan and Croak, obviously. And then, weirdly, because they've been pointed exactly right now, 2 packs of full Salamanders and another Salamander.
So you lied. There's loads of skinks because those bastards come with a zillion skinks each. Fucking hell.
Other quick tournament results is the Eels...
4-up save skinks as well.
4-up save skinks. Well, not until only until you've buffed them. Then it's a 3-up or a 2-up rerollable against shooting.
Yeah. Twats.
They have the best armor in the game. How? What are they doing? They're just sitting there like carving the hides of their brothers and sisters and being like, yes, Jeff will protect us.
Yeah, so there's been some scuttlebutt recently, Nathan, where some people online have said that they think that Seraphon is just kind of like a B-tier army. I was wondering if you had any kind of response or thoughts to that.
Fuck you. They're not.
He's not wrong.
Someone clip that. Someone press the clip button, please. That would be great.
Fucking what? No.
Perfect. It's all
it's upset him so much he's broken.
Yeah, he's just not saying words now. I like it when I just talk about Skeet Priest online and he just angry reacts now. It's so funny.
Fuck.
Immediate rage emotes. Yeah.
So that is. There was also some other Eels won an event in Poland, unsurprisingly. And then there's an Italian event, and I can't remember what took that out, which is fun. There's also a really fun event this weekend in Northern Ireland with Exploding Dice, which is Pete's and Colin's venue. They're doing this first sideboard tournament this weekend, which is
wow.
Yeah, so I'm very, very excited about that. So they are going to be 1,500-point lists with 2 500-point editions. You can't have anything in the 500 points that's in the 1,500 points, if that makes sense. and you can't
Cool.
have
That's
any.
cool rule.
It's a cool rule, and you can't have anything in the 500 points, like in one of the 500 point blocks. It's in the other 500 points. So I've been sent the list, and it looks really, really fun, and would be a really fun to play a fun way of playing some Warhammer at the weekend, and then changing up the style. Have you got any thoughts or any armies you'd like to try and put into that process?
Well, I think off the cuff, it's quite hard to think up an army quick, but I really like the fact that they're forcing you to take different stuff. So you're going to see a lot of list variety. Yeah, that's great for stopping spamming as well. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that sounds like a great pack.
It's really fun.
It's also kind of interesting as well because you have, I guess, the two sides to it. You'll have people that create a sideboard based around the enemies, like the people they're playing against, and then you have the other kind of attitude where you'll have people building a sideboard based around the missions that they're going to go. They'll go like, this is my army for this mission, this is my army for this mission, which was, I remember the very first CanCon did that. And it was cool. It was different. I'm not disappointed that CanCon stopped doing that. It wasn't. I don't think it was right at the time for where it was. But it's really interesting to see like how do you play that game? Obviously, because that just messes with all of your plans so much. When you come up and you're like, okay, I'm playing against Skaven, so I know these loves a shooty list, so I've got this. But then he also has his little winner chicken dinner combat-y list. Which am I going against? I think it's cool. We'll make it interesting to play.
Okay. I think it's going to be really fun. And just to answer some questions in the chat, Owen asked, a big shout out to Owen. Also a big shout out to Anna. What up, Anna? Do you or your opponent choose the sideboard 500 points? And it would, and Pete's in the chat, he says you choose, but you must use both on each day. So you.
That's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
I like. I was going to say how if you're forced to. But I like you have to use both each day. That's proper good. Yeah, I'm in.
That's just because you like forcing people to do stuff. That's all.
Yeah.
That's cool though, because it means you don't just, if you've taken it and then you've made whatever hell plans you've made, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then you go, oh, I haven't actually used that yet, and you're like, I have to use the one that either sucks against the army or sucks for the mission.
Yeah,
that's a really cool little rule.
Yeah, super fun. Really looking forward to finding out about. And I also hope the tournament does go ahead as well. Dan, we are facing an imminent full lockdown again here in the UK.
I heard.
But Northern Ireland is a little bit further away, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, so they can keep rocking and rolling.
But hopefully, well, we'll see what happens there. I'm not sure right now. Right, okay. That's all of the news, I think. And then we're on to the main part of the show. Let me give you the premise. Do you want to hear the pitch?
Pitch it. Let's do this.
Okay, this is the situation. The Stormcast are not even in the top 10 aesthetic for Age of Sigmar. That's the first thing that we say. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
hot facts.
Hot facts. I think everyone agrees with that, apart from obviously maybe like 2 or 3 people. So I'm going to go through all of the factions, and then we're going to design the best starter box for Age of Sigmar, because we all love this game and we want like the best starter box. Like, what do we think will have the best broad appeal for everyone to get people into the hobby, and the reasons why. So I'm going to pick factions, and I'm going to need you two to kind of justify why they should go into the box, and also where you think the aesthetic level out of 10 is for this. Like, what is the top aesthetic? I think.
Okay, and before we put the meat in these potatoes, can I just confirm something?
Yes, sir.
What that means is that this show is a nightclub, and Nathan and I are the door bitch and the door bastard deciding who looks good enough to come in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Great. Yes, good. That's what we're doing. Good. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, if you are ever concerned with your fashion, like if you're going out for a hot date or you're going for a night out, please just tweet at Nathan and myself. We'll let you know whether we'd let you in or not. I think that's the best way to do this.
Agreed. So this is for all of you to be a part of as well. So I'd like to hear what your comments are in the chat. We'd like to read out. We're already getting some suggestions. Gits versus Gits. Nighthawk versus Sylvaneth, obviously.
Gits versus Gits.
And there we have the winner.
But we're also, while we're also going through this, we're also going to rank the aesthetic of all the different armies. Yeah? So, because when I was talking today and it was like, do you know what, Stormcast, aren't even in the top 5. I was like, they might not even be in the top 10 aesthetic. Like, what's their aesthetic? It's kind of gold a bit. Whatever. Like
we've got metal.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start with, because I know you guys both love it, destruction. It's just easy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So we're gonna break it down a little bit more. So you've got Gits, right? You've got Gits. Obviously, they're aesthetic. You need an aesthetic number, a placing on the aesthetic number. Probably we'll just do it out of 10, and then we'll sort out later. So what's their aesthetic out of 10? And then from Gits, what would you put in a starter box? That's my question.
Oh, I think they're particularly lucky because they had a whole slew of new models with their release, and I think some of those models are top notch. I mean, the Gobbapalooza, the Gonad Splatter Fanatics, the Troggoths. The new stone trolls and
but
the Dankhold.
So listen to this. If you put Dankhold, Trogboss, and Troggoths in the box, I'm gonna cuss you out because I'm gonna be like, you're selling a bum army to some kids. Like you're selling a bunch of like currently they're not competitive and like they look great. Don't get me wrong, but if we're putting them in the starter box. That's
you want a competitive army?
No, that would be my criticism. If Games Workshop released a Trog box tomorrow that was for new players, I'd be like, look at them fucking them over, so that they have to get a proper army at some point. No offense, Trog.
I know, I hear what you're saying. I get it.
Fuck you, you're saying it wrong. They're great. Seriously though, the Troggoths, the Fellwater, and the Rock Guts. For their points are decent.
Okay.
Decent troop options. And then you also have obviously all the Squig stuff that's come out. So I think Gits are in a pretty strong place if you're looking at the aesthetics. But they are a harder army to play and get results with. So if you're looking at that side, then
all right, listen,
a new player is going to struggle with those.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, my balls are getting roasted in the fire. But in the Twitch chat, there's a lot of aggressive conversation in the Twitch chat. So we're going to take rules out of the conversation. Never mind. We're going to adapt. We're going to learn. We've overcome. We've listened. The people, you have won. Congratulations. All power to the Twitch chat. Overthrow your stream masters and take control of the conversation. Well done. So Gits, what would you put into Gits in a starter box? Dan, you got any thoughts?
Okay, so I wouldn't go with a big one to start with. I'd go with like the little bloke on Squig, the Grot boss on Cave Squig or whatever he is.
Yeah.
Couple of units of 20s. And then I'd honestly probably just keep it tight and go with for me the iconic units in the army and put in a unit of Boing Rot Bounders or like Squig Hoppers and a unit of Spore Splatters or Fanatics. Like that, for me, I just put that lovely little core. They're all gorgeous models and it gives you the flavor of the army and pretty much like a core that almost any army is going to want as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to. A lot of the guys in the chat saying big spiders. But they're much older models, and the little baby spiders really are a bit rubbish looking. Big question is do you think that the Squigs have like big market appeal? Like, we're pitching to anyone who isn't into Warhammer, who might be into Warhammer. So like, from classy people that really love Battlestar Galactica to like absolutely tasteless goobers who like Star Wars, and like anything between that kind of range. Yeah.
You can throw both those bunches of people in a box. They're both dumb cops. But the
I just got Zimbabweans. Oh dear.
the squigs, I think the squigs have got a huge amount of appeal. I think a squig herd and a mangler squig, and then some of the squig knights. And if you're going to be generous, give them some sneaky snufflers. Then I think that's a great theme box.
Yeah, sneaky snufflers would be cool as well. Again, they're just beautiful models, right?
Yeah, and I really rate their rules. Even though it's the 12-inch and not moving shit stuff is a bit crap, but no, I think in a squig army that's a nicely themed force, and you got some core there. You've got some elite with the boing growers. You've got a nice monster, and you've got a buffing unit as well with snufflers. So, yeah, that would be my vote. But the thing is, there's all of the sub factions are pretty tasty. I know the Arachnarok and the spiders are quite an old model, and the Skull Boss as well is. I think he's a bloody resin thing, isn't he? But the Arachnarok model itself is probably one of the best kits that has stood that length of time. Anyway, it's just a fantastic kit. But yeah, you'd want something. You're struggling there a bit, I think, with what you're going to put with it. And then the trogs are great. Even the Fellwaters are nice. I think that would be a great box. A couple of trog bosses. Well, a trog boss, a Dankhold Trogoth, a unit of Rock Guts, and a unit of Fellwaters.
Nathan, you've chosen it all, but you can only choose one thing. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I would go with the squig one.
Okay.
If I was going to be selling a squig box, that's what I would go.
Well,
with.
don't forget, it's got to be a battle box, so it's like a starter box, right? So they will have to have an enemy, which we will talk through in a moment. So just some things in the chat. Stephen AoS makes the best point. Obviously, you also include some squig dice to complete the box.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, baby.
To emotionally hurt your opponent. Good. Glad that we are keeping that still like right in the center point of our minds.
Perfect.
I don't think it's just emotional hurt that you'll be causing, but that will be included.
Apparently, according to Hawkeye, the amount of 40k women on Twitter painting squigs is crazy. Nathan, did you know about this? I feel like we could get more viewers if we get Nathan like semi-naked, covered in squigs.
What the hell's that all about?
I am paying for that calendar, let me tell you.
That's a subscription I'm never letting it expire.
So
it's
Goon
fancy dice. Anyway.
So Goon1 in the chat said, I'm a 39-year-old. I used to collect Wood Elves from the old fantasy when I was a kid. Since lockdown, I've really wanted to get back into Warhammer. However, a little said no Wood Elf army for a noob. What's the best starter for AoS for order, please? The best starter for AoS for order. That's a really interesting one. If you liked Wood Elves, maybe just go along for the Lumineth aesthetic. They're brand new. They've got really cool models. Like, they look great. Like, and then they can play all of the phases, unlike Ideneth, who can literally have one phase, one unit, one model. And
what do you mean? Eels is a phase. It's like what phase do you play? I have eels. That's not a phase of the game.
Eels are a phase. Eels are a phase like My Chemical Romance is a phase. Like or that one guy you knew at uni.
Someone tweet me a photo of like a Lumineth army all in like really intense dark colors and with heavy eyeliner around all of the riders and the eels, because they take the time to be like, yes, that's right, Aloysius, you shall also be intense.
But choose what you obviously like the look of. But if you'd liked Wood Elves, Seraphon are in a really bad, Sylvaneth are in a really bad place at the minute, so they don't really work. And if you do like the aesthetic for the Wood Elves, you could also place some of the units that currently exist in Cities of Sigmar and just use them as other units that are better. No one will care, which is really important. Yeah, the Emoneth. Perfect. We've done it, Dan. We've done it.
The Emoneth.
That's what they're called from now on. The Emoneth. Lincolneth Park is also great. Oh,
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you, Twitch chat, for this.
well done, Twitch chat. Well done, Twitch chat.
Yeah, good. Give yourself a pat on the back, boys
All
and
right.
girls. You're wonderful.
So I need a Squigs aesthetic. Sorry, not a Squigs. A Squigs. So you've chosen Squigs out of all of Gits. Give me an aesthetic rating for Squigs out of 10.
Or I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna give him a solid 8.
And don't forget, this is for your. Oh, I don't know if I'd like fantasy, but like they've watched all of the Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, and like they've watched all the sci-fi and fantasy films ever. But they're like, maybe it's for nerds. So will that pitch it to them? Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, 9 out of 10. They're great.
Okay. All right. So next up is Uruk Warclans. Uruks. So if you were going to put Uruk Warclans in the chat, in the box, what would you put in the box? What would you put in your perfect starter box? That's the real question.
Oof, that's a toughie because you got all the bone splitters as well as the Iron Jaws. The new Iron Jaws models are just. I've painted a load of them and they're so nice to paint. Especially the brutes are.
I couldn't go past. I think I'd have to go Iron Jaws personally, if I was trying to decide.
What would you put in from them?
Oh, so start with Iron Jaws, brutes for sure. I'd probably go brutes and piggies, and the big boss, only because they're beautiful models. They're just like, you can't look at them. And how many times have you seen a heavily converted Iron Jaws army? Because those models are just gorgeous and dynamic, and they've got so much going on straight out of the box. And they don't all look like they're just praising the sun constantly. And no shade, Bone Splitter players. I know I'm going to get some crap for that for a couple of people, but I just think that they're a bit more dynamic in the box models, and I'd probably keep it simple, stupid. 2 units of brutes, a unit of battle piggies, and a war boss, big boss in mega armor or whatever he's called. I'd keep it simple, keep it smashy. That's all they need to do.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing about Uruks, which is being made in the chat, if you put in the starter box, I think it was Zip Zap Rap, who said that they've got Iron Jaws, or Uruks generally, have got a lot more mass appeal necessarily than Squigs. Like, they're your classic fantasy trope of an Uruk. Looking to drive, that's kind of what you see, right? Like, anyone that's watched Lord of the Rings is like, yeah, I'm into this. This is fine. So that has some big appeal. Desert Sketcher suggested just putting 8 big stabbers in the box, which is a bold move.
It's good. It works.
Yeah, and also Goonawan in the chat, I think, who is new, said when you're doing Iron Jaws, you have to paint them yellow. No, when you're playing Age of Sigmar, you can just paint anything, any color that you want. Just have a great time. If anyone tells you can't, just fucking kick them right in the dick, and then just carry on with your life. Is my general suggestion. Yeah, okay. So you're both gonna put brutes in.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the brutes models are great, and the rules are alright as well. If you're worried about that, the Ard Boys the models are probably not so appealing, so I wouldn't bother with them. I'd definitely go brutes and
Piggies.
gore grunters, yeah. And then it's whether you can afford to stick the Maw Crusher, and if you can, then definitely, because it's just great model, great to play with, real fun to play with.
Are we not like at this point like absolutely hankering for a mega boss on pig? Like that's so
good. I think if they were going to do a starter box and you could get that new model, that mega boss on pig, then yeah.
Wait,
a winner.
Can we also create a model for this box? You know how all these starter boxes have...
I want to, but we can't. Otherwise, we're just going for the current aesthetic, what Games Workshop have given us, and what we can do.
If it's just that, then probably the mega boss on foot, and then one each of the other characters as well. A weird knob and a war chanter.
Oh yeah, like the cavalcade of characters and some piggies and brutes. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, Single Jack, I want nothing more in life. I think none of us want anything more in life. I think, honestly, if they release a Mega Boss on Gorgrunner, I'll walk down to Lenton, which is 10 minutes, yeah, and I'll just stand outside and clap. Just on my own. I'll just be like, bravo, bravo.
You hand them an award every single time someone comes and arrives. You're just like, there you are. And they're like, what's this for? And you're like, just doing a great job.
You're
there
just
you
doing
go.
a really good job. Just handshake everyone as they walk into work. You're just doing really well. I'm really proud of you. Pass that up. The line. Okay, so
I just want you to know how well you've done. I just want you to be aware.
So what do we think about the Uruk aesthetic generally in Age of Sigmar? Like, where are they placed as an aesthetic? Like, are they the best looking faction in the game? Like, are they been realized in the right style? You know, what's going on?
I reckon they're one of the top. Personally, it hurts me to say it. Hurts me to admit that of a greenskin, but I genuinely think, in particular, the Iron Jaws side of things, one of the best. One of the best. Yeah.
Okay,
I'd say definitely. I mean, when you're looking at Twitter after releases have been done, I would say the Jaws. You just saw. I mean, you seen the same with the Gits actually, and the thing about the Gits is that's just maintained a pretty steady rate, and I think the Iron Jaws as well. I think they're just both fairly traditional, but really great sculpts. I mean, you look at the Iron Jaw expressions on the dudes, on their pigs. They've nailed it, and then the same with the on the pigs, and then the same with the squigs and the crazy goblins that are riding them, the dudes that are chasing them up. It's all just, yeah. I think those two factions are probably two of the most popular factions that they've sold, I would say. Since AoS was released.
I think to rewind not too long ago as well, they were the easy beats for quite a while before this book came out, and they still made up. Remember, like their win percentage was pathetic, and they made up huge amounts of the team tournaments, and that has nothing to do with the fact that they were good or with the fact that any other thing that people looked at them and they were like, I want this.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Look at those models, I want them. And so I think that's kind of the proof's in the pudding there, where if I was looking at a box, that's where I would go. That they would be, I'd be hard pressed not to choose them.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're going to give these an aesthetic. You're going to give it a 9 or a 10? That's pretty high.
I am going to give them only because we haven't gone that far yet, and I don't want to overcommit hard. And I work under the assumption with all my staff, I try not to give them praise or compliments, because that way it keeps them working harder for it.
Wow.
So
Tory Dan.
but yeah, there we go. Sucks to work for me. But what I would say though is that if I think the Grots are an 8. I gave them an 8. But when I look at it, if I had to balance between the two, I'm probably leaning towards the Iron Jaws. So I'm going to give them an 8.5. Okay. 8.5.
Okay, Nathan, Iron Jaws?
Yeah, I think they're pretty close as well, but I'm leaning the other way. So yes, I will give them an 8.5 as well.
Ooh.
So the Gits are ahead on with their 9.
They are. Yeah. They've got an 8 and
biased.
a 9.
Biased.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm definitely biased, but I definitely played both, and but I think both of them are actually a really fun army for a new player as well. If this is aimed at new players, then I think they're both great armies for new players to start with too.
Sure.
Okay. So next up, the last from the destruction, obviously ignoring Gargants, is going to be Beastclaw Raiders. Well, sorry, Ogre Boar tribes, effectively. So how do you rate those guys as an aesthetic? And what units really stand out to your artwork or anything like that stands out to you as being part of their aesthetic? Because I feel they've got a very confused aesthetic. Like, they don't really know what they are.
They've got some really old models, haven't they? The Yetis and the Sabertooths, and even the Hunter, the Icebrow Hunter. But then if you took the Icebrow Hunter from the Warcry kit, you could stick him in there, and he's and him and the Tyrant are some of the best models. Again, well, I mean, there's some of the new models. All the new models are some of the best models, aren't they? Really.
Yeah. Sure.
But they're. I still think their core are pretty sweet. The Gluttons and the Iron Guts are still sweet models. They're still, and the nice thing about them is you've got a bit of maneuverability with their arms and stuff, which you don't have with some of the newer stuff. So, I do like them as an option.
I dig it. But I think you're 100% right. They're confused. They're a beautiful. They're aesthetic when it's realized, which, like Nath was saying, you see in the Iron Guts and the Lead Belchers and the Bulls. It's awesome. And then when you look at some of the other stuff, for me, it just maybe misses it a little bit. I love them. They are on my shelf. They're my pride and joy. I think the other thing, though, is that there are only 2 bodies for them. Like, for anyone that's ever built them, there's 2 bodies, one with the left foot down and the right foot up, and the other one with the right foot down and the left foot up. And so I'd need another couple of units for them to realize that image. I dig it. I love it. And they're beautiful, but they don't hit high enough for me. I adore them, but I had to do a lot of unit choosing and converting and stuff to put them where I wanted them to be.
Yeah, okay. I mean, they've got some big monsters which look awesome, right? Like that.
Yeah.
That's pretty. But I think they suffer from being an older book, and even if we remove like the models out of it and the conceptualization, like their story is cool. Like the boulder heads literally eat rocks, the other guys literally eat thunder, but it doesn't It's a little bit because they're older models which they've had to make a story about. The Pradian, thank you very much for subscribing for 2 months. Welcome. So they. Like the artwork, the style, the direction, and even the story feels a bit mashed together. It's a bit like we've created something in this space as opposed to like the Lumineth, who like obviously we've already got that backstory a little bit. Like there's Teclis, and he messed up with the Idoneth in that he only made 1 unit good, and then he like went on forward, and then he made like another army where he made 3 units good. You know, so.
I only love these children, the ones that listen to a lot of Panic at the Disco.
But yeah, I think ultimately, also for new people, I don't think their aesthetic makes tons of sense. I think it's a good aesthetic. It's just, it's fantasy, but it's very on the nose, isn't it? It's like some big fat lads with giant hammers. It appeals to me, but it doesn't. I don't think it would have broad market appeal. So, in which case, if the more tribes, because I don't think they're getting looking in the box, what are you going to give them for aesthetics, Nathan? Dan?
I'll give them a 6.
Okay.
My heart went straight to a 6 as well. Love them. I hate to admit it, but unfortunately, it's a 6.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. Okay, so we're going to go over to Death before we go to Chaos and Order. We're going to go over to Death. Okay, so Vince Venturella from Warhammer Weekly, VV, as some people know him, did the cannibalism is the issue for Owen in the chat. He worries that might cause some sort of political hoo-ha, effectively. That makes sense. We need something that will also carry weight in the current climate, Dan, so... Obviously, people eating each other generally not considered okay most of the time.
That's the
chaos faction out of the window there.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's look at it this way though. Where very soon you may be going back to lockdown inside. You might have to start eating people. I hear that's what they've already started doing in Melbourne, Australia, because they're only allowed out for like an hour a day. So. If we're not eating each other, who are we eating is the question I'd like to ask. At least the ogres are honest about it.
Yeah, okay. They're just upfront about what they're up to, right? Yeah. Okay.
Most of the time they're eating humans anyway, so that's not really cannibalism for them.
That's true.
That's true.
That is true. All right, so Death. We'll start with the Flesh Eater Courts. Flesh Eater Courts. Okay. So their aesthetic, obviously, is that they're having a delusion, but that's quite hard to really translate in the box art or like to the audience in like a starter box. It's kind of cool. What do you guys think? Like, what would you put in? The ghouls are quite old. Crypt horrors are quite old. It's quite old set of models. And I feel like, I mean, it's quite a strong aesthetic.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they're pretty tasty aesthetic. The ghouls are old, but they're not. I guess they're not great, but they're not totally terrible because I mean they're supposed to look like horrible things anyway, so they're doing that really well. The Terrorgeists are great models, aren't they? And the things that you can do with the Crypt Flayers and ghouls and all of those fellas, you've got a bit of flexibility in that as well. So it's just, I think the Vargeist is a letdown there. And if you're going to go with the Crypt Flayers and that, you probably want to have one of those lads. Those smaller heroes. The Ghoul King on foot, again, they've had a new model on that, haven't they?
They don't think so. They got the Arc Regent, though.
The Arc Regent. Yeah, that's the guy. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, he's not bad. But, yeah...
Oh, Nathan, I think we lost you, bro. Go on, Dan, after you.
Well, I was just going to say, obviously, his opinion doesn't matter then, which is... Nathan, sounds like you're back, mate. Do you want to finish your thought?
Yes, and so that's why I think that.
Good word.
No, I think unless they were going to go like, have a load of Terrorgeists and knock yourselves out, probably not. I mean, even that is probably a little bit over the top for a starter box. So, yeah, probably not going to make the cut.
One starter box gets some Cities of Sigmar Free Guild, and the other starter box just gets 3 Terrorgeists.
One Squig Herd, 4 Terrorgeists.
Yeah.
Who's going to win?
Yeah, I think no one in the chat is particularly keen about it. Owen saying Castle Box, full Gothic ruin castle with a king and the court. It's FEC, Classic Fantasy. I think they get bonus points for that. So they do get bonus points for the fact that they are relatable fantasy that people have understood before.
For me, I like their aesthetic, but every single unit is the same, just a different size. It's like you look at Crypt Horrors, and I'm like, cool. Hulking, swollen ghouls. And then I look at the Abhorrent Archregent, I'm like, slightly less messed up, but still kind of vampire ghoul. It's all, and it's not to say that their aesthetic doesn't tie together, but they're just bigger and smaller versions of the same thing. Where when you say look at a lot of the other armies, or where you say look at Ironjaws, let's use them as an example. You look at the Brutes, and the Brutes have a very unique aesthetic to the Battle Pigs, but they still tie together, and yet the units, you convey something different with the 2 different units. Whereas, say, Ghouls to Crypt Horrors, all I see is the same unit but bigger. Crypt Flayers, all I see is the same unit but with wings. And I just... Then Vargeists, for me, actually do look different, but they're not a part of that army. So I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's bad, but their aesthetic is not. They're tied together so tightly that there's not enough difference between units for me.
Yeah,
and
also, you've also got to remember the energy that the army gives off, the vibe. Yeah, the joie de vivre. It's important. It's like we got to capture the eye. This is our box. This is the honest wargamer starter box. We maybe have already got squig dice in there. We haven't even got to accessories yet. Like, this needs to be so on point, and we can't trust the fact that everyone is a Speckles. We can't trust it.
Also, some people have hang-ups about nudity. I know it's no one on this show because we're definitely all wearing pants, but some people would look at that box and be like, there's a lot of butt and loin fur.
What did you do today? Oh, actually, love, I was walking through the high street and I saw, that Warhammer thing. But they just got too many bums on show, so I thought, nah, not for me. Not for me. So I bought some Star Wars figures.
Space Marine.
What were you doing? I was edge highlighting booty curve.
There's nothing that I want more than to paint strong, powerful muscles of the bum. I've always said that. So what are you guys going to give to FEC as a rating for their aesthetic? Their aesthetic rating.
I think they're still quite good. I'd say 7. I'll give them a 7.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna say for me they get a 6.5 on their individual unit aesthetics, but their army aesthetic pulls them down to is a 4. So I'm gonna balance them out at a 5.
Okay. What are you thinking?
They're gonna get a 5 from me.
Okay, seems fair. Seems fair, or not fair at all. RC to Courts would be a unique aesthetic. Whole different vibe. Whole different vibe.
It wouldn't be a court of delusion. It would be a court of depusion.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was really good. Really good. I can't talk. Okay, let's move on. OC Bone Reapers. Let's do it. So OC a pretty traditional looking vibe. Yeah, I know I'm saying the word vibe a lot, and energy and aesthetic. It's because I looked at a load of Instagram accounts. Stop being upset with me. Yeah, I understand it's a bit of a joke. Calm down. So I feel like they give off, obviously, real big boner energy. But beyond that, what kind of energy do we think that they have? They have that nice, like, Mongolian Eastern vibe going about them in their art design, which is quite cool. And they look pretty imposing. But, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know if they look imposing. They look like they've just... I don't know. They just look a bit weird. With their funny grins on their faces all the time.
Do you think that they're under some sort of pollution?
Yeah, I think they could be with the flesh eaters. They're under some sort of delusion. Yeah, I mean, the models they're also a bit different, like with the way they're sort of things that are being melded together to make. It's not like any of them are any one. They're not like a skeleton, really, are they? They're like some skeletons that have been squashed together to make another type of skeleton of something that never existed. So, I think they're on the higher end of that sort of fantasy vibe. I think they're a bit like Marmite, really. Some people really like the look of them, and some people just doesn't do it for you. And they don't do it for me personally, but I know a lot of people do like them, and fair dues.
Well, like the Catapult is like an 11 out of 10 model. However, the Harvester is a 0 out of 10 model. It's literally a weird model with a crotch fucking donkey face. It's so weird. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, no, a 0 out of 10 in my mind for that. But then the Catapult brings it right back up. Death Riders, right back up. Big fan.
Yeah, whereas I'm not a fan of the Death Riders, really. They're all right, but they're not something that proper gives me a hobby boner, nor the Catapult. Even Catacross with all the weird dudes running around him on the thing is not nice. I don't know. Something about it is just off for me. And, and I think there's a few people where they're just detracted from it. And I think if you're doing a starter box where you're trying to appeal to people, I think it's one of the ones that you're either it's going to be a hit or a miss, and with a variety of people, and I think you're cutting out a potential wedge of people. So for that, I think they actually lose out. But their aesthetic is a bit like Marmite, like I say.
Yeah, it's a bit. It is really out there. Let's be honest. Like it's a big deal. Sorry again in the chat. I said my brother hasn't been into Warhammer since we were kids, but he saw the OBR and was impressed. I think they would make a good starter for the WoW factor. But I think, like Nathan said, you are wowed, but you're either wowed and you don't like it, or you do like it. It's very much like Ant-Man the film. Yeah, some people are like, this is obviously great, and other people are like, well, this is
wrong.
This.
Other people are wrong.
Well, I'd say that they're missing the army for me is in the same way that flesh eater courts are. They're missing a unit that contrasts the others, and the example I'd give is Skaven. Right, you have all these cool units. You've got Storm Vermin. You've got all of this, and then you have Clan Rats, which give you like the shit kickers that contrast the rest of it. In the same way that in Free Guild you have the companies like the regular Free Guilders, and then you have the Chicken Knights, and you have all that kind of stuff going on, which creates this lovely contrast between them. I would just say that that's what they're missing. They're missing like they need some plebs, some menials, because I actually dig their aesthetic. I really like it, but across a whole army, it's a bit samey, in the same way that the Flesh Eater courts were.
They're too cohesive.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing that makes me look at it and go like, oh, there's the plebs, these are the knights, these are like I would say that the army that did it best back in the day was Britannia, because you had the pilgrims and then you had the dodgy dudes who just got the absolute living bejesus crushed out of them, and then you had the errant knights and the knights. Like, it was a really cohesive range that created those different contrasts within it. And I just feel that for me, as much as I actually dig the models themselves, the army doesn't create enough contrast.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, too homogenous, Grubby saying in the chat, and I think I do agree with that. I think you've made it's quite hard. Like, that's quite a nuanced point. I think. Like they do. I see what you're saying there. I think maybe that's why I like the crawler, because the crawler is quite unique amongst all of Age of Sigmar generally. Like it has a big energy, but so does Catacross. He has a big energy, but I don't really like his vibe, because I'm like, I don't get it. Is he like sat on a chair, waiting, like kind of walking towards us? I want models to look like they are in the battle, not stood. Which is
okay. So on that, right, just to make that point, look at the Mortek crawler, and then look at the workers on that crawler, right? Like, just pick it up, have a look at the actual workers. If you give me a unit of them, I would be really interested.
Oh, just a bunch of like serfs, just
yeah, that's the thing. Because suddenly you've given me an unarmored kind of like plebeian unit in this unit of undead knights and heroes and champions, and there would be a difference in their armor. They're not as heavily armed, they're not carrying shields, all of that. You give me a unit of the workers, and the Mortek guard look even more impressive in comparison.
That's right, Dan. Workers unite. Let's go all the time, every day. So what are you guys giving this a rating for this aesthetic? What are you going to go for? Nathan, got any thoughts? Give me a number.
It is a strong aesthetic, and I guess as death goes, they're a good, the skeleton vibe is something that you have. I'll give them a 5.5 out of 10.
Okay. Oh wow, jeez. Okay, and Dan.
I'm going to give them a 7. Actually, I think that they're very, very samey. However, I dig it. Would I put it in a box though? No.
Okay, so what did you give it? Sorry, a 9?
A 7.
A 7, sorry. So sorry. Zygo in the chat says, in Death, you can't say your mates who never saw AoS, I have a zombie army or an undead skeleton army. You have to say a naked, hairy, kind of vampirish, part bats, part humans, or they are like skeleton knights, but they are knights made of bones, but a bit more Eastern, but with a dead king style look. It's a bit confused. Which brings us on to the next aesthetic, which is ghosts. Like, a pretty strong aesthetic. Voted in Vince's poll that he took, one of the strongest aesthetics that, not aesthetics, that one of the best army styles that people looked at. So the Night Haunt. I mean, they have got standout. I'm going to pitch for these. I really am, to be in the starter box. You've got the Black Coach, unbelievable. Hexface obviously a little bit older. As much as Grimgas Reapers were obnoxious on the tabletop and we saw them all the time, they look great. All of the special characters look great. All of the non-name characters look great. Like Harridan. The only thing I'll say about them is I'm going to make sure I say this right. They look kind of cheap because it's really just a kind of ghost with a weapon. Does that make sense? Like, you feel like you're not getting a thing. I know it's just a feeling I have. Like, it's just a feeling. Like, you look at it, you're like, it's a bit ephemeral, which I know obviously is hilarious, but like that's honestly what it makes me feel anyway. What do you guys think?
This for me is an excellent example of the opposite of what I have said about the last two armies, in that it's an army that really is. I'm looking at the models right now. It ties in together so well. Every model in it looks like it belongs beside the model that it's next to. However, every single unit is quite unique. And the two that would be the most easy to be the same is, like, you look at the Grimghast Reapers and the Bladegeist Revenants. And even there, like, yes, they're similar, but there is that lovely, unique aspect between the faces, between the scythes and the swords and everything like that, and just their model positioning, like their bodies. I gotta say that there's a reason I think people said that, and I think they're right too. Also, spooky ghosts makes us feel like Ghostbusters.
That's true. And I also think that they are very attractive to people who are more aesthetically minded. Like, because you can do great colors, and you can either go for, people either see them and they think, I'm going to paint them purple, yeah, or they get like real grim dark and they make them like be like white, not too white, just little note for everyone, and then like, and then, you know, they do oily and they do that kind of blunt jitsu sort of like look to them. And I think that's why people would be a fan. Also, Black Coach. Again, did I say the Black Coach? Would you put it in the starter box? Probably not. It's probably too big. But Black Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what you would. Yeah. Nathan, what are your thoughts in this situation?
Yeah, I do like the Nighthawk army, and I think it's one of the most attractive of the Death factions, actually. And yeah, I can imagine that people that are, if it's aimed at like new people trying to pick stuff up, it's definitely eye-catching, and it's something that they can relate to as a fantasy trope sort of thing, and yeah, get in on. So yeah, big thumbs up from me. I think the Nighthawk are one of the nicer looking factions that you can get, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's actually been a bit of a shame that they were basically subsumed into Legion of Nagash ever since competitive inception. And then while we've seen a lot of the models, we've also not seen a lot of them because they've been dead on release as an army, which is such a shame, really. And I know people have posted good results with them in different places, so, you know, don't at me, because I don't care. So,
at him all you can. It's
just
fine.
tweet Nathan Prescott with your thoughts. He'd love to hear it. So, what are you guys going to give the Nighthawk? Because, I mean, it's already in the starter box. It's already in the starter box now, and I think it's a great inclusion. I think it's super strong. What are you guys giving it?
I'm going to go 8. I think they're great. Yeah.
I'm going to give, for models, I'm going to give them a 9. For some of their rules stuff, I'm going to drop them down to an 8. So I'm going to give them an 8.5 overall. The reason for that is when you're first picking it up, I remember the first few games against Nighthawk where it's like, okay, so I've got this many, so I get this, and I'm wholly within this, so I get this reroll, and I get this plus, and there's all these different layers, and then they are ethereal, so they ignore rend, which in some regards makes it easy, but if you put an army on the other side of the box that has rend, you're like, oh, so I don't actually get to learn and use some of my rules.
That's a really good point. I know we're not talking about rules, but that's one that doesn't really matter about their competitive level. That's just for a starter box, that's actually a really terrible inclusion.
So for me, that's why I'm bringing them down to an 8.5. Their aesthetic is so strong, it gets them up there. But if you're putting it in a starter box and I'm like, yeah, I'm excited, I've picked up the models, I haven't even base coded them yet, I've just built them, I'm like, let's learn. And then my opponent's like, sweet, I've got this big dragon with Rend 2, and you're like, I don't care. I'm like, oh, but that's one of my cool things. And you're like, I don't care, you don't get it. I'm like, oh, do I take any of your cool things away? No.
Yeah, it's a good point. And if you put
Well,
Kurnos,
all of your life, all of your points.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
off the board.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is about aesthetics, but like if it's a starter box and we're including squig dice, then I think that's something fair to take into account. And points well made there, Dan. Points well made. Okay, so there is other stuff in Death, but obviously we haven't got like battle tomes or anything, so we're just going to scrap them. Oh, Legions in a Gash. Sorry, that's what everything's encompassed in. LON. So Legions in a Gash. I feel like the aesthetic is very caught up with the Nighthaunt, like at least quite strongly, or that's how I see it. But it's whether or not you like big Nagash or not, and you can't put Nagash in the starter box, so it feels like a non-conversation, right?
Yep.
Yeah, unless you're going to put one of the Mortox in. I mean, you could include some of the Nighthaunt units and some of the regular Death units, and that way you could have the rend thing is negated, because some of the stuff is obviously subjected to rend. But then it's just what other units would you be putting in there with them to make it all look cohesive? I mean, you could have some ghosty boys and some. What's the other? Yeah, what are the other things in the Death faction that are decent looking and fresh? So.
Personally, I think that they're a bit of a mixed bag of a look, and I wouldn't really throw them in. I think the only thing you could go with is skeletons, and do like a skeleton Legion of Bone death rattle thing. But yeah, I don't think that they'd be great for a starter box. Yeah, I don't think so.
No, yeah. So Dan's going to pop for a minute to make sure because his building alarm is going off, and hopefully he's not going to die in a fire. Just gonna
check. Be right back.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. That would be good.
Good luck.
While he's gone, Nathan, I'm going to let you know that we're obviously going to try and make it so that we put Squigs versus Oryx as we'll try and fix it. If I can fix it, I'll fix it. But I can't promise you that we're going to fix it. So yeah. But we shall. So are you doing okay? Twitch chat, how you doing? You enjoying yourselves? I hope you're all enjoying yourselves. I want to say big love to you all being here, and thanks for being here as well. It's always nice.
I mean, the obvious winner was the Gits versus Gits. You could have had Squigs versus Trogs.
You could have in a Destruction Civil War. That would have worked. Yeah, people would have loved that. We didn't get Dan's vote on Legion of Nagash, but I'm just going to give it a 5. It's going to go down for work aesthetic.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's loads of old models in there. They've not really got new stuff in that really, have they? No. Not since the end times, so.
4 years ago. 5 years ago? No?
Yeah, something a long time ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't yesterday, that's for sure.
It's true. Also, it's really interesting that, like, I wonder how much thought genuinely goes into what their starters are going to be, and what works best for. Because obviously, the last starter box for Age of Sigmar, or the one with the Nighthaunt and the Stormcast, was actually really bad for a player. Like, if you were a player, it didn't have complete units, and Stormcast were just so much stronger than the Nighthaunt part of it.
Put it out, Dan.
Yeah, so I just saw a bunch of people. I kind of opened the door and saw a bunch of people standing out the front of their apartment. I think they microwaved something they shouldn't have. Also, I was still wearing the headphones. I could hear you dicks talking about trying to put like it's not like you were being sneaky and I was gone and I missed something.
Damn it.
Outfoxed again.
Yeah, by the fact that I was still wearing headphones. Anyway, but yeah, sorry for my score on them. I would have given them a 5. It's not that they don't have a great aesthetic. It's just kind of a mishmatch, and it doesn't tickle the loins that well.
No, I agree with that. Okay, so we're going to move into either chaos or order. Twitch chat, what would you like us to break down? I'm feeling chaos before we hit the final one of order. Yeah, we'll just do chaos. We'll just go through chaos. We'll start off with my new boys, the Skaven. The sneaky Sneaky Skaven. What do we think about Skaven? Thumbs.
Sorry, that's absolutely useless for those listening to the podcast. I like it. I think that that it would be a really cool place to start. The only trick is that some of the models that you want are still metal even, which would make it a little bit harder. But I dig them. I think they're good.
Yeah, Arch Warlock, excellent model, but is in metal. Then obviously the Acolytes are in metal as well. They don't have any new models, but they have a massively strong aesthetic. Like massively strong. Like it's a big vibe. Like rats that are like what they're just they're medieval rats with weapons. It's a big, strong aesthetic that's really hard to ignore. And I do think that I feel like you couldn't pair them up with squigs, because if you did something like that, then it's just too animal. And you're like, oh, what am I playing? Like aggressive animals are far than wood. I don't want to do this.
What was that thing?
Can I play that game? It sounds great.
Everyone collected the small little furry animal things. They were like Sylvanian families. Did you have that? I don't know if there was a thing in Australia. I remember there were like little furry toys that everybody had, which is probably exciting, Nathan. I really dig the. I mean, look, let's just remove Night Runners just for a second, just because they're a little bit aged.
I'm painting up right now. I just painted up my very first Night Runner, by the way. Truly shit is how I describe this model. Truly shit. But please continue.
Well, no, like I was just like, you look at clan rats, plague monks, storm vermin, just as their infantry, right? And every single one of those units is really unique, but they tie together really well. And the clan rats make the storm vermin look awesome. And both of them make the plague monks look like rotting, in a good way, like rotting garbage. And that's what I was saying about the other units, and that's why I really dig this army, is that every unit ties into the army well, but then it makes all the other elements of the army look better too.
Yeah, look like what they're supposed to be.
Yeah, and they do have some obviously great kits. The Verminlord kit, in my opinion, is one of the best kits. It's just out there, like just unreal. Just looks so phenomenal. And then so's Thankwall as well. Really great model. But the rest of the range is pretty low key. And what you would actually include would be some fairly old models, which I think would be a little bit disheartening for people.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's still quite an old range. It's still, some of it is still keeping up, respectably with everything else. Like all the constructs are pretty good. The Warp Lightning Cannon and the Screaming Bell, they all look great still.
It's true. It's true. A reimagined Skaven at this point would blow people's minds, I think. But I don't think they even need to. So, sorry, Nate, you were saying.
Yeah, like the little the Grey Seer model. It's
looks
great model. Yeah, he's a fantastic little guy. So, yeah, it is a pretty strong aesthetic, definitely. Yeah.
I think the only thing is the most recent stuff that you would do a box with would either be Warlord clans, in which case it's like a Claw Lord, some Storm Vermin, Clan Rats, and maybe a Warbringer, or Scryer. Which you'd be like, I don't know, Storm Fiends, a Doom Wheel, and a Bombardier with some Clan Rats. Like it would be really cool to be able to do a box for me with Molder. They've always been the most interesting one to me, where it'd be like some Clan Rats, a Hell Pit Abomination, but the Rat Ogre box, like the original Rat Ogres that you never see anymore, that box has started to date pretty heavily.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. So I think, unfortunately, they just don't. I think the aesthetic is strong. And when they get reimagined, I'm going to give these guys just a flat 10. Just a flat 10. Like, however the reimagining occurs, because it will just be wild. But it's an old model range, and they need an update. And so, like, that's where I'd be at with it. So what are you guys going to give it out of 10?
I'm going to give him a 7.5. Because I look at like and I know that this is going to upset some people, but here's why, right? I look at the Warlock Bombardier, and I look at the I don't know, like the Warlock Bombardier or the Warp Grinder, and I'm like, cool. Even the warp grind is a little bit older, but I'm like, that's really cool. And then I look at the warp fire thrower, and I'm like, what? How is that still what you look like outside of a plastic update that you can't get anymore? So that's what pulls them down for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need an update. That's just
Yeah.
the facts. So 7.5. And Nathan, what are you giving them?
I said 6.5, but I'll
Oh,
actually make it a 7. A 7, I think. Yeah.
Okay. He's upset because. All right, so that's Skaven. So we'll go for the big boys now. Slaves to Darkness with your boy Archeon in. So Slaves to Darkness have got a very classic fantasy vibe, right? Couldn't get more classic. But they're also, because of that, they are a bit
Generic.
Generic.
Like,
Yeah. There's no intrigue. I don't see it, and I'm intrigued. I'm like, oh yeah, they look great. And the new Chaos Knights, the Chaos Warriors, excellent looking models. Chaos Lord and Carcadrak, excellent model. Archeon, Varangard. Actually, I think the Varangard look a bit derpy, if I'm 100% honest with you. But Archeon definitely looks great. Although not when he's stood on his tail. I again think that looks a bit derpy. But if you just do some kit bashing. But you're not going to include that in the box, are you? You'll get the Carcadrak, Chaos Warriors, Chaos Knights. And they all look great. The rest of the range is a bit meh. But it feels very generic as a range. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, it's just big barbarian types, which is, it's a strong fantasy trope, isn't it?
Yep.
So it's not, and they are really, really nice models as well. So it's hard not to really consider them, I guess, just because they look so good. I really like the Warriors and the Knights, and the Carcadrak guy. He's proper nice model. So yeah.
And then, but for me, I look at so the Dark Oath Chieftain and the Dark Oath War Queen. I'm like, oh yes, give me those models, give me those armies. And then I look at Marauders, and I'm like, oh no. And I think that's, again, it's another army with a lot of disparity in there too. I'm just looking at it though. Can you not get, the starter box, the new Slaves to Darkness Warriors? Can you not buy those separately yet?
Nope.
Wow, really? Wow.
No.
I did not, because I was just looking. I'm like, the Chaos Warrior Regiment. Oh, they've used an old photo. Nope, never mind. It's just still them.
Yeah, you can't buy them individually at the moment. So
that's weird.
Is that the weirdest thing that's happened from Games?
No.
But then you also have models like the Ogroid Myrmidon, right? I'm like, that is, for me, while I have it, and I can't wait to build it and paint it, and I'm never going to use it in an army, but it is just one of the coolest models that I have ever seen.
Well, make a cool Demon Prince.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but he's not going to be himself. But I look at that and I'm like, cool, I want to use him, but I couldn't. And then if you look at the aesthetic of, he's supposed to lead the gangs, right? All the blood spoil gangs. And I look at his aesthetic compared to theirs, and I'm like, he doesn't really tie into any of them. Maybe the Spire Tyrants, but there's just a lot of I think that's what it feels like. It feels like a lot of pieces that don't quite go together. You look at the Godsworn Hunt, the Warcry, the Underworld's Warband, and if I had an army that looked like that, oh boy, Slaves to Darkness would be just tippity top of the pops. But then you compare them to Marauders, and it's not good.
Yeah, but same with Kadra saying in the chat, the Warcry models are obviously fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and they're part of that as well. And you could include those in the starter box, but that would be a bit weird. But they'd look great. I think it's just more the general vibe. I feel like there's got to be some intrigue. It's got to be fantasy tropey enough, this starter box, but not I know what that is. Do you know what I mean? Whenever Mantic, or I'm sorry that I'm picking on you, Mantic, or some third-party company, they're like, we're going to invent the new game that will be the fantasy tabletop game. And you're like, sweet, what you got? They're like, good guys versus chaos bad guys, and you're like, okay, all
Ah.
right. Like, and I feel it should be a little bit like different than Slaves to Darkness. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, and the Warcry warbands are gorgeous, spectacular models. I've got a Corvus Cabal, an Unmade, and a Cypher Lords, all built and painted because they were just lovely projects. But they don't go, even though all three I painted in a similar style because I really enjoyed the color scheme I was using. They don't really go together particularly well. Their aesthetic is really different. So as cool as that is, it's not like those models an army make.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what we guys giving it an aesthetic out of 10?
I'm going to give the Ogroid Myrmidon, the Dark Oath War Queen, and the Dark Oath Chieftain an 8.5. But unfortunately, the boulder around their ankle, just like Homer when he joined the Stonecutters, it's pulling him down to a 6. I'm afraid.
But okay, Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the models that are there are great. Obviously, the basic, the warriors and the knights, but it's just having something maybe to stand out a little bit more. So I'll give them a 7.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, for me, I just think they're a bit too on the nose. Whereas, like, you almost want Skaven to get their update so that you could be like, right, Skaven do that. Like, it's all the fantasy stuff. It's a Chaos Warrior, but it's a Storm Vermin. Awesome. And there's a picture of a giant, like, Skaven monstrosity in the background, whatever that might be. Loads of magic. Okay, so the 4 Chaos Gods. I will start with Nurgle. What do you guys think? Funny. There's some humor in there as well, which works. I think would be deliverable. But it was odd, right? Seeing like pestilence and disease. Also, if it was a brand new box this year, really would be on the nose and really like tone deaf to be doing a Nurgle starter set.
I'm in. Let's do that.
Go on.
I think they're some of the strongest models, aren't they? I mean, Horticulix Slimux and those beasts and all of that stuff is, they're just great. All of it, even the older stuff, the old Fine, the Blight are solid. The drones, and also the little characters. There's some great ones. Even the Nurgling, and the big lads. It's a really strong faction, I think. Nurgle.
I think the 2 oldest models in their range, the Lord of Plagues and the Rotbringer's Sorcerer, you could kind of argue that the Rotbringer's Sorcerer doesn't quite fit their aesthetic anymore. But he is the only metal model, I think, left in that range. The Lord of Plagues looks spectacular beside it all. Festus looks amazing. So the oldest models look great. And that for me is like a really discerning factor, and it ties together well. Plague Bearers are beautiful. I think it's good. I know we're not thinking about rules, but I am just thinking a little bit about play style. Would this army like give you the grand battle vibe and I think like it would as well. Maybe it might be a little bit slow on the uptake, but no, I dig it.
Yeah. And they would have one of those tree things to paint as well. So that'd be fun, wouldn't it? So
yeah. Yes, they would. Also, I think some of the models that like Pusko or Blight Lords, they don't see a lot of play on the tabletop, but they look great. They're super cool models. So I agree with you. There's some really, really good ones. There's some really good models there, and it's a strong theme as well. That plague, pestilence, that makes sense. I feel like if you were going to put that as a starter box, you would have to counter it with something intentionally like good
and clean as well, clean cleansing,
squigs.
Well, you've got binge and purge, right? Like these guys are drinking themselves until they're throwing up everywhere, and then you've got someone on the other side with a bit of spray and wipe and some chucks just to wipe it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like that's what confuses. The Stormcast box looks a bit odd, doesn't it? Like the Stormcast versus Nighthaunt. And you're like, those are the guys beating up ghosts. That's weird. Like, yeah. Okay.
What have they got against him?
Yeah, I know, right? Stop that. Stop it right now. Okay, whereas, like, you probably would have Idneth like Blastoise in some water at the Nurgle guys trying to like clean them off, right? It's like you're dirty. Stop this. So what do you give the Nurgle aesthetic? It's a really strong aesthetic. The thing that I really like about Nurgle is when you look at it, the models and even the kind of like tone of Nurgle, they translate that bit of fun across. Which I'm not certain if people want that fun. Like, I don't know, maybe they do. Like, they want to see it and they're like, oh, look at those little Nurglin. I mean, sassy Nurglin.
Yeah,
he would get someone in, right?
I like it. I like it personally. I think they're good.
I think they're pretty strong. Yeah, I'm giving them an 8.5.
I'm giving them an 8. Yep.
Okay. Okay, good. So 8. Okay. Just there we go. And then so Nurgle Corn. Oh dear. I mean, everything we said about Slaves to Darkness, but red.
Yep.
Is that not? Is that not?
Yeah, I think they're a little bit better than Slaves to Darkness, because you have some units in there that pull it up. Like Blood Reavers obviously do much more for them than say a lot of the others than Marauders do. But then you have other little bits and pieces like the Mighty Skull Crushers, which you obviously want. They, on face value, you're like, oh, that's awesome. And then you see these almost like immobile, weirdly static riders on the back of them.
Yeah. So you've got the Mortal Corn stuff, which looks pretty cool. Again, it's a pretty classic trope. I mean, when you move into the Bloodthirsters and the Endless Spells, or the Judgment, that you really get a cool vibe, I think. That's like a fun... There's some real fun elements there.
The demon side is cool. The Bloodthirsters and the Bloodletters and all of that, pretty sweet. And you got the Hounds, which...
Oh, yeah, the new Hounds look really good. Yeah, they look really funky. And again, that would look really awesome. Like... I agree with you, Nath. Yeah, if more of the Hounds side of it would be a really cool vibe. And I think if someone saw that in a shop, they'd be like, "Oh, doggo, what's that? Evil doggo." Not sure I'm happy about that. That'd be a way to get them in. All right, so Corn, what are we going to give these gents out of 10?
Whoa.
It's a toughie. I do think that they would sell as a starter box because they are a very
On the nose.
Yeah, on the nose, whatever that means. They are a very characteristic trope type thing, aren't they? So I'll give them an 8. Actually, I think they're pretty strong.
See, I'm only going to hit them with a 7 because I'm comparing them to Nurgle, and I think Nurgle is a little bit more unique. And that makes, if I was walking past and I saw a box and I saw Blood Warriors and Bloodletters and that kind of vibe, or I saw Plague Bearers and Puscoil Blight Lords and stuff like that, I would be more excited about the Nurgle side. And so that's why it goes that way for me. I think play-wise, Khorne would be a better starter experience, but we're not getting too deep into that, so that's why I'm going to go 7.
Okay. All right. Next up is Tzeentch. That's right. The Tzeentchy boys. So Tzeentch. So they're very colourful, which I think is a positive. I think you can paint them up super colourful. You could really counterpose them. If you're doing squigs in red, you could counterpose blue Tzeentch and kind of like purple, and you would end up with like a really colourful kind of like box set that would... I feel like it wouldn't be the grim dark that some people would want to see if you were seeing, let's say, humans versus Uruks, but you would end up with a very bright box which would catch the eye at least and ask you some questions. But I know some people aren't that excited by that. Nathan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think they have got some cool things. Even the older models, the old horrors and stuff, all right. If you're going to throw some Zangor in, they're pretty cool. The Enlightened and the Skyfire options. So you've got a bit of flexibility there as well. So
Diadrin in the chat has just brought up the Tzeentch versus KO box, which genuinely was weird looking. Like he was like, "That's weird." It was a weird looking box, wasn't it? It was like some boats and then some guys just kind of flying by. Yeah, we are pitching to like the everyman, and I think Zinch maybe is a little bit too out there. The pink horrors, you're a bit like, what the fuck is that? If you went like Acolytes and Zangor, that would be probably more relatable. Like either just flat Acolytes or, but they're a bit boring. Like
it's cool. It is cool that almost the entire range is new plastics, and the stuff that isn't new plastic doesn't look that dated compared to it. Like that works for me. Apart from the Fate Master, it all looks kind of on the same page.
Yeah, it's a really cohesive looking army. Like in a range, it's like it's got a super good vibe when you see it on the tabletop. No matter what you add into it, there's nothing really stands out of place. Changeling looks cool. Flamers look cool. Like they're all much the same. Burning Chariot, the starter box looks great. I just think, and also it might be too colourful to get people into the game. Like some people walk past it like, oh, I'm not painting blue. I'm not painting blue. Rubbish that. Do you know what I mean? But if they saw like some fucking erect, rock hard man in armour with a sword, they'd just be fucking all over it. They're like, that's for me. That's for me. Strong lads. I like a strong man, me.
Like if they saw Kyrek Acolytes, that's how they'd feel. And then when they play the Kyrek Acolytes, they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks to Reflex for donating 100 bits to the show, by the way. Appreciate that. So, Zinch, what are you guys going to give it out of 10?
I'm going to go 7.5. 7.5 for me for the old Zinchi boys.
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah, I think they're on a par with Corn and them. I'll go 8 with them. I think it's a nice looking army, super colourful. If they put some of Louise Sudgeon's art on the box, then they'll probably sell it all.
Yeah, sell billions.
It's great. Yeah,
sell billions of it.
and
then Slanesh.
Some great models in the Slanesh range, and then it's
But I feel like you would have to put Demonettes in, and they actually aren't very nice looking.
They're probably a bit weaker, but the new Fiends and even the older models like the Hellstriders and stuff like that are not bad. The Chariots would be a nightmare for somebody if that was their starter model. One of those Chariots.
Worst thing they ever buy.
That would be the last thing they ever bought. So yeah, probably leave those fellas out. But then when you look at the Fiends and the Keepers and that sort of stuff, proper mental, proper good.
I just the thing that I miss from it is if you look at the Infernal and Rapturous, and I don't mean her, I mean the dude who is her harp. And if you look at him, and then if you look at the Hellstriders, I'm missing mortals. I'm missing some, like all Slanesh you hear about, like these people who've sold their souls to Slanesh and all of that jazz. Where? I don't see them. All I see is demonettes. All I see is demons.
Yeah, you want their version of a Carrick Acolyte type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If they had something to humanize it so that I can maybe like see that, because I don't see who they're taking advantage of. I just see all of these horrible things, and I hear about these worshippers who apparently exist. And that I think there was a really, really cool story during all of the goings on with, I think, the lead up to Forbidden Power or whatever it was, where it was talking about this hunt of mortals in chariots and on steeds, like trying to smell out very Mad Max Fury Road style and find Slanesh. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting story. I want to make that army. And then I looked at the range and I was like, I can't. It's actually impossible for me to make that army. And so I think that's where it falls down for me in a starter box, is it's just demons.
Yeah, I understand that. It makes total sense. And like you say, so who is it in the chat who said, yes, Meatball says, Slanesh has to be the biggest division of cool new models and uglier sin old ones. Like, there's no division. They're either Infernal Rapturous and you're like, wow, or you're like, chariot that you power on through order, or should we come back to order next week? Is the question.
Yeah, I could. Wait, are we back? Maybe we're back. Hold on.
Oh no, yeah, we're back. I just seen it. Never mind. Are you two okay to carry on?
I'm here. I'm good.
Perfect. Never mind then. Apologies.
Did the stream get the scores? Because that's obviously the important part is if they missed Nathan's score.
Yeah. So the score was 6.9 for Sinesh. That was the score. 6.9.
Hot takes.
Yeah. Right. So finally into order. Okay. I'll just have to do this in order. Sorry. Oh no, wait, we forgot Beast of Chaos. As always.
Oh.
BOC. How could we have done that? BOC. Beast of Chaos. Great aesthetic. Like the Skaven. Same aesthetic. Like, really good. Unfortunately, all the models are old as shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think they look all right. A lot of them, like the gore and the best gore and all of that, still look pretty tasty.
I agree. I actually think
the Bulgors as well.
Yeah, all the big fellas as well, actually.
You are absolutely both out of your minds. Like, there is no way they look good. Do you know what synthol is?
No.
So synthol is like it's like Botox for your lips. Only people inject it into their muscles. Dan, just take a moment to Google synthol if you get the opportunity. Yeah. So synthol bodybuilder, and then click on images. You are gonna. Oh, James Powell in the chat.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So instead of working out at the gym, what they do is they inject synthol into their bodies. Yeah.
That sounds like what the Chaos Gods would do to animals to make them a little bit more fightier.
Yeah, but no, Nathan, they don't make them fightier, though. They don't, like, actually make them stronger. They just make them these horrific...
Just like the beasts of chaos.
Look at the size of my biceps. Oh, man, you should be able to do some damage with those. Should being the ultimate word.
Man, they are playing to the law like it's going out of fashion.
I think, like, if you were to look at a thing that was maybe like Bestigor and Bulgors with but then even you'd want a choppy leader, and the closest they've got is the plastic Great Bray Shaman. I actually think they are a really cool aesthetic. I genuinely do like their aesthetic, but possibly not quite the winner.
Agreed. Yeah, Beast of Chaos, not the winner. So what do you guys... Full of synthol, that's what they are. So, Nathan, Dan, what are you giving them?
I'm going to go 6. Because I think they are decent range, but again, it's probably the heroes where they lack a bit, although like the Doom Bulls, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, 6. Yeah. I'm
actually gonna go a 4, because I just realized that all of the Skyfires, Enlightened, and Zangor are part of it, which fucks up their aesthetic. It means that there's 2 different weird conflicting aesthetics that don't match each other, and it screws with, like, the Zangor don't look anything like they should. Anyway, so for me, I'm giving them a 4 because of that. Messes them up.
I think the whole actual Beastman vibe, like the shamanistic vibe, like ignoring the Zangor bit, I actually think their aesthetic is super strong. I think it's on par with Skaven. It's just the range hasn't been explored for years. But I think, like, when they do explore the range, I think Beast of Chaos will become very quickly one of the most collected armies that you'll see. They are so cool. They've got so many places that they can take that, like, anima style, like, army.
Yeah.
They can do so much with it. Like, I can't wait to see like proper Tuskor chariots that are like all improved, or like big, just big pigs, big aggressive pigs, or you know, a good Gorgon. Let's go for that. A good Gorgon. So actually, I would rate that a little bit higher. I think their aesthetic is actually genuinely very strong. But I think their models are rubbish, and I want to stick on the vibe of the army. Okay, so Retistanti makes a point. Hey, put the Zangors in beasts and give them to 3 other gods. than the 3 other God Touch cores, blam, instantly more dope. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
That's a really good point. Yep.
All right, so on to not Beasts of Chaos. So we're into order now. That's where we're in. So, Cities of Sigmar is not the first one we're going to do. Cities of Sigmar will be the first one we do. Cities of Sigmar. Let's go. What are you guys thinking? A very eclectic range. A bunch of stuff that they found. Nathan, after you.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry, you were finishing your roundup, whatever. Yeah,
that's it.
Carry on.
That's my roundup done.
Yeah, I think they've got to be a strong contender for a stock collecting box, just because the wide range of models. Although it's all fairly old stuff, I guess. Maybe if you're trying to show off your new fancy stuff, you won't have the option to do so much with these. But I think as a stock collecting box, that you've got loads of different tropes you can go down. You can even embrace the proper city trope, where you've got a good mix of things, and it probably all ties together still quite well. You could have dwarves and elves together, which is a common theme in like Lord of the Rings typey trope thing, if you're looking at that. So I think it's strong. Some of the models are maybe a little bit weak, especially like the old Empire stuff, maybe. But like the new dwarf kits and some of the new elf kits are pretty strong. The new dark elf stuff, like if you had the Corsairs and the with some proper dwarf and like longbeards and stuff like that, would be pretty tasty. So yeah, they're just. And there's such a wide variety. You've got the phoenixes, you've got the gyrocopters, you've got just loads of stuff there, isn't there, to pick and choose from. It's hard. It's hard to discount them as something that you could use to get new people in, sort of thing.
You're right. It's got loads of the fantasy tropes that you normally could assume or put into a story. That you could do some cool box art with like an elf running along with a dwarf with a gyrocopter flying above as a phoenix circles. I mean, if you do Cities of Sigmar, you can literally just like pick anything that you want, right? And that gives you a strong counterpoint, or just a human with a spear, just like terrified of whatever they might be fighting.
The thing I noticed, like reading the book, I really didn't think that the aesthetics were going to work that well together. But then when you see people who have painted up these armies in a unified color scheme, they actually do kind of complement each other nicely. Not all the time, and that it gives them a little bit of a bump in my eyes, because like looking at some of them, I was like, oh, how's that going to work? But Free Guild greatswords standing beside hammerers or longbeards, it looks awesome. Like it's a really, really cool little 1-2 you got going on there. Or say, I don't know, Phoenix Guards striding along with Wild Riders zipping around the sides. There's so many really awesome aesthetics you can put together. The only thing that I would say that holds it back is there's so much choice. There are also bad aesthetic combinations too.
It also would help people like learn about the background of the place. Like if you just pick up just squigs, you know, dank holds exist, for example, and then you're like, what else do I need to know? And Nathan, good point, you need to know nothing else. But like if you play
weird question.
But if you are playing cities, you at least you start to learn about the realms and how like business is conducted and about all of that cities like stuff. And I think that's quite cool. It gives you that kind of like fundamental grounding for the game. And I feel like they're a better order pick than Stormcast. Because really, you got to ask, are they a better pick than Stormcast? And I think that they are. Like, the only problem is, obviously, there's nothing new in any of those ranges. They are all...
Or you could include some Stormcast units in that. They are a strong part of the city's range anyway. And they would actually tie in quite nicely with some of that as well, I think.
Yeah,
so if you still want to have the poster boys in there, you could still you still got the opportunity, haven't you?
It's true. It's true. Yeah, yeah.
The only-
Go on, Dan.
The hard part, the hard part would be if you're putting it in a starter box. I would say you'd have to tie it around a city, and then which city do you choose? Probably Hammerhall because it's the most generic. But I think like the most interesting two that I've seen people doing is Tempest Eye and Anvil Guard, like an Anvil Guard army with humans and dwarves looking really dark and intense next to their broody like elf cousins looks really awesome. But if you were to try and do Hammerhall where it's a bit more brighter and raise the banners, it might not be as banging. Like Living City maybe for the elves and the Sylvaneth. But yeah, I think that the trick would be picking the city.
Okay. Yeah, fair points. Okay.
Yeah.
Cities of Sigmar then. What's your rating?
Oh, I hate to say it, but I got to be fair. I'm going to give them a 6.5, just because we've spoken about the things that really do work together well as an aesthetic, but there are also a lot of things that really don't, and I have to be fair there.
Okay, Nathan.
Oh, I think they're super strong. I'm going to give them an 8. I think they're they're up there, definitely.
Okay. Next unit, gents. Oh, sorry, next faction. After Cities of Sigmar, you have got the Daughters of Cain. Daughters of Cain are up next. So they have got not that many models, but they've obviously got a great Marathi. But if you included Witch Elves, they would look like Sisters of Slaughter. So you would do like a unit of Witch Elves, then maybe a unit of Blood Sisters. So you had like snakes. And maybe even throw a shrine in there if you get a shrine in. So that would be like, it would look very diverse, but then you would realize that they've showed you all the diversity in that one box. And then you just add a Marathi. Not that that's a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. It's just kind of, that's all that's available in that book. So aesthetic-wise, though, they look obviously phenomenal. So yeah, Nathan, what do you think? Thoughts on Daughters?
Yeah, great looking army, and like you say, you've got actually a nice mix of models in there. And I think if you did delve deeper into the books, there's one of the smaller books, again, isn't it, like the smaller factions that you have? It's not one of these big mega factions, but there's actually a fair variety, because you've got the 2 different types of flyers, you've got the 2 different types of witch elf, you've got the 2 different types of snake. So as you explore the book, you actually have a fair amount there. You've got a fair range of little support characters, and you've got the construct with the cauldron, or the two different types of cauldron you can take. I think they're a pretty good army. I think the only thing as a starter kit, some people might be a little bit confused that they're part of the so-called good guys when they don't look like good all guys. So yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but is that a bad thing? No, I don't think so. Make people expand their fucking minds, man.
Yeah.
Get your head around these long lasses. And I think that would be actually a fun army for us as a starter army for somebody to play with. If you were running some sisters against Squigs or Nurgle or something like that, that's quite a fun fight and I think for both sides actually.
Yeah, and also if you included like a cauldron, you would end up with like the Avatar on top with the Hag Queen. You could get a Medusa as a spare, so that's like a wizard. So you can cover all the bases for like play, where you can have like you don't have any shooting necessarily, but that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they're problematic. I think they've got a really strong look and they look great, but I think what Nathan said is absolutely accurate. Is they don't look like good guys. I'm not saying you have to have a good good guys, but you kind of have to be like murderous women, which is also murderous women is also like a pretty problematic fantasy trope. They're strong women, but only because they're like true, they're crazed by blood and murderous. I'm just going to call it like I see it. So I don't know if it's got the biggest mass appeal, or maybe it would. I don't know. I'm not inside a woman's mind.
I think as a box, it would be cool. Like, it'd be a really, really cool start. Like, you'd look at it and go, that's awesome. However, I think what you said before, Rob, is what would get me, is you'd probably, in the box, I imagine, just like you look at their start collecting box now, but if it was a starter box, you'd have a shrine, witch elves, some Canary, and some sisters. And you'd build those up and you'd be like, wicked. And just like when you look at it, they are really diverse units with a really cohesive aesthetic, which is awesome. But then I'd be like, awesome, what do I do now? I built witch elves. Now I build Sisters of Slaughter, and they're pretty much the same. And then you're like, okay, cool.
30 of them.
Well, I built Heart Renders. Now I build Life Take. Like, the problem is that they do have a really unique aesthetic, which is really cool, but their 3 units are just double units with weapon swaps and head swaps for the most part. And that, for me, is where I think if they were in a starter box, they'd sell. I think because they're interesting. And I actually think for me, I like the fact that it's an all-female army that is a real moral gray area for them, because you're like, yeah, cool. So they're not just being like, oh, it's all good and we're all strong and blah, blah. It's like, no, we'll cut you open and steal your soul. But then for getting into the game, after you build those units, it's like, what do you do next? It's like you build another 50 witch elves. That's the next step for you.
Yeah, or you can buy your Marathi, and it's like, cool. It's like now 50 more witch elves. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. So yeah, no, I agree with you. So what about their aesthetic? What are we giving it out of 10? Nathan, Dan?
Oh, I think they look really good as an army. It's a really nice army, and I do agree with Dan. I think they're a female army, which is proper good. I'm going to give them an 8 as well. I really like them as a starter box army as well, to be honest. So yes,
8. I'm giving him an 8 as well.
Okay,
giving him an 8.
Ooh,
yeah,
they did really well. That's fun. Okay, next up is, don't worry about this. I can already tell you they're going to get a low score. The Fire Slayers. So they are angry ginger dwarfs who are naked, and they all look the same, said someone miles away, but not me. So Fire Slayers, strong aesthetic, dwarfs who are naked. You've collected one, you've collected them all. Should we just give it a 4 and move on?
No way. I like them. I think they're pretty good. I think you've got nice monster, and they don't actually look the same. I think there's quite a nice variety in the units. You got different heights with the different types of weapons and stuff. And I think they're a good counterpoint to some of the other armies that we've chosen, if you're going to have them as an opponent in an army. So, yeah, I think they're on a par with the Daughters of Cain, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I think
come?
Aesthetically they're really nice looking army, and I think they're a good army for people to play with and try things out with. And they're a good, strong fantasy trope as well.
Yeah, they... I mean, yes, dwarves definitely are.
And, yeah, you got the Magmadroths, you got the priests and all of that. So, yeah.
All right, Dan?
I'm giving them a 5. Oh, I hate to admit it hurts my soul, but I do think that the units do look different. But for me, when I'm painting my Dispossessed, right, Hammerers have these helmets that are anvils, and they've got these big beefy hammers, and like the aesthetic of the model is changed by the shoulder pads, the helmet, and the weapon compared to, say, Longbeards. Same with Iron Breakers and Iron Drakes. They've got shoulder pad swaps, their helmets are different, and the models actually functionally change and look really unique. I don't feel the same vibe between, say, Auric Hearthguard and Hearthguard Berserkers. It's just like one pole has a gun on the end and one pole has an axe, and it hurts me to say that. I hate it. I feel dirty. So can we just move on?
I'm giving them a 7.5. I like them.
Okay. Oh, I don't have anything that isn't vitriolic to add, so I'll leave it. I see. The thing is I think that they could really add something to the range. Like, I think the problem is, like, if you've ever rolled your very first character on an MMO, you're like, cool, I've got the cloth shirt and the cloth trousers. But then eventually when you're level 18, you've got, like, the shoulder pads that are like galaxies, yeah, and your sword's on fire, right? And it's awesome, like, because everything's different. And Fire Slayers, though, will, like, even if they release more Fire Slayers, it will just be like the naked ginger dude with a different type of weapon, unless they, like, invented different monsters or, do you know what I mean? Like, I think Dan hit the nail on the head, is their armor is just not, it's just the same naked body, basically. That's all I've got. Right, next up. Ideneth Deepkin. Deepkin. That's right. The emo elves.
Oh, this is such a nice model range, though, isn't it? Though?
So
it's a shame you'll
nice.
never use them.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. It's the aesthetic, right?
Yeah.
I think as a starter box, they're actually, they're pretty sweet. You've got a nice mix of units there. You've got some infantry that fight. You've got infantry that shoot. You've got some weird-looking cavalry. You've got some bigger, weird-looking cavalry. Then you've got monsters.
Yeah.
You've got Namati versus Achillean, even within that as well. You've got the different aesthetics of the characters and the different class of them. I love that. Mm-hmm. They're a really strong one. It's a shame because what would happen is you'd see it and you'd be like, ooh, they're elves, which is a very standard high fantasy trope. They look great. I reckon you'd be drawn in. Like, even their starter box, it's a really good looking starter box. Yeah. You'd be drawn in, and then after, like, building them, reading the book, playing a game, you'd be like, so all I want is eels?
Well, yeah, but that's the rules thing. Like, I think I think the aesthetic thing is that they feel a bit, like, for a starter box, I'm not into high fantasy, and, like, a rat man to me is a bit weird. To have, like, fish elves, like, they're strong. They've got, like, they're singing. Their energy level is huge. They're putting out big vibes. You know, Kanye maybe would make an album about them. Like, it's big. It's big. Yeah, it's big energy, is what I'm saying. But maybe the energy is too big. Yeah.
Eels versus horses is tough.
If you just, like, you wanted a swords and boards sort of fantasy, like, this isn't, like, but if it's a rat with a sword and a shield, I reckon you can get by it. But when it's like an elf on a fish, you're like, I don't reckon. I'm not sure about these guys. They're wrong.
My dudes are gonna drown.
Yeah.
My dudes are all gonna drown.
Yeah. How if you'd never played actually that's a really good point. If you had never played Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar or any of that, and you were thinking about getting into it, and you saw the Ashalin or the Morsar Guard, you'd be like, how do they move? Or like the Aloplex, you'd be like, it's a shark.
Yeah.
There's no water.
Yeah.
It would upset me. Yep.
And then you'd be like, what are the rules for the game? Like, do I have to play in the sea? Like, you would start asking yourself questions about the game. Because, like, if you ever met anyone who's, like, never played the game before and they're like, you use a tape measure, and you're like, dear God, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to take a while.
So I think it's actually, while it's an incredible aesthetic, and I think the Eidolons are beautiful, and I'm all about it. Aloplexes are great. I just think the energy is too strong, too much. So what do you guys? Too aesthetic. You can over design stuff. It can be too engineered.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I'm actually okay. I'm going to give them a 7.5. I think their aesthetic is great once you understand them. But I was just from that conversation, I was thinking back to when I first saw the models, and I was like, how are they flying? I was really interested to see the sharks and the eels, but I was like, it seems weird to me. And then the more I read about the Ether Sea and all of that, and I could actually create that, like, little story and image in my head. But yeah, I'm going to give them a 7.5. I think they do have a strong aesthetic, but I think it's not great for starting out.
Okay. Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, we can't really sell people short. I think people will be able to wrap their heads around complex ideas. S- uh, and if they don't, well, I'm sure they'll have fun doing it. But yeah, I do agree that it does seem a bit far fetched, but maybe it's a bit of a push on people that are starting. But yeah, I think that people will get there eventually, and they are such a beautiful model range that I'm going to give them an 8, I think.
Ooh,
I think
okay.
Scott B puts it well in the chat. Like Deep can draw a lot of people over. Like if you see them on a table, no other game has anything like that quite. So like they're interesting, and you look at it, and they maybe draw you in. But I don't know if they're the army that people would see the box on the wall and be like, I want that. That's what you go after you've done your first army and you're ready to get weird. You know, like you've popped your Warhammer cherry, and now you're like, let's try some stuff with whips and handcuffs.
Yeah.
And eels.
And eels.
Where does the eel go?
Moving on.
Yes,
wherever
my
it wants.
friend.
The eel phase. So next up, they're dwarves in boats in space. Carrion overlords. That's what they are. Big energy, big aesthetic. I mean, personally, I can't see how you wouldn't make this a starter box. Like, big energy. Nathan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, again, one of the best model ranges out there. I think, again, maybe it's a little bit Marmite. Maybe some people are put off by all the armor and the boats and stuff. But, it's super strong. Again, though, is there that too much of a stretch for new people? Like we've said, they're going to be thinking about fishes. They're going to be wondering about how these dudes in boats are fighting. How the guys on the ground are going to be able to fight the dudes in the boat. But yeah, they're just going to have to get around that and find out that that's life. So yeah, I do think that they are pretty sweet inclusion. It's just a good model range in my mind. I'm just a bit worried that some people might be put off by the sort of mechanical nature of it. But so maybe they're a little bit niche, but who knows?
I think it's all about what they're fighting. I think if you're pitching that perfect starter box, it's like, what are you like? And it's dwarfs, right? So when you look at Archanaut Company, I mean, the Balloon Boys are ridiculous the first time you see them, but then you're like, okay, like. But I think if you look at Archanaut Company and like having a boat, for example, then you've got like a nice mixture of profiles. But you get it because you're like, okay, they're dwarves, okay, they're pirates, they're dwarf pirates. That's cool. Like they're easily relatable things that like Games Workshop has worked out. So you're like, I'm into this, and then, but it's what you juxtapose them with, which I think when they did it with Tzeentch, it was weird, and like it looked odd. You feel like you would want some sort of like maybe an Order Civil War, so they're up against like some Cities of Sigmar or something like that. Kinda would look cool. I think anything, or even Slaves to Darkness would. But the thing is that pirate nature doesn't then make you think heroic. So they're not up against the forces of chaos. Do you know what I mean?
I think they're pretty cool. They can go against a lot of things, really. I think you got a very metallic armored thing. I think it would look really nice going against something that's organic and sort of less ordered and more chaotic. So like you say, the Order Civil War probably against Sylvaneth or something like that would be that would look really nice, or even against the Squigs or the Rats or something like that. That would be a great combo. Karajon versus Rats, or, those sort of things.
Yeah, that's true. That would look really good, actually.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Rob. I think that this is a bit of a no-brainer for a starter box. And like, let me just paint you a picture, right? You look at this range, and yes, it's maybe a little bit small. It could do with another unit or two, but you look at the heroes. The heroes are all pretty similar, like in stature and in stance and whatnot, but their equipment and their kit out and makes them all look really unique. Like you couldn't look at an ether chemist and an etheric navigator and be like, oh, that's the same model. They look really different. Then you look at, say, your Arcanaut Company and your Grunstock Thunderers, and it's very clearly, it's like these are the guys that man the ships, and the Grunstock are really clearly the militant side of things. And the boats, right? All three of the boats, it's a similar aesthetic that ties them together, but the Grunstock gun hauler is clearly a scout dinghy. Then you look at the shape of the Arcanaut frigate, and it looks like that balance between speed and firepower. And then the Ironclad just looks like a slow-moving gunship behemoth. Like they've really hit the nail on the head. I think they're interesting. It does enough. It gives you dwarves. It gives you they're short in stature. They look heavily armored, even if sometimes the Arcanaut Company don't feel that way. And they've got the tech. So you look at it and you're like, cool, you've given me traditional dwarves with the game spin, like the fact that Age of Sigmar isn't like dirty, gritty realism fantasy. It's this own wonderful fantasy, but I can get behind it. And they're different. They're really unique as an army, rather than just guys with swords and shields hitting orcs with swords and shields. It gives me something new, and I think their aesthetic is spectacular. The outcry when they weren't that good after kind of, people bought all the Aether cannons and mortars and skyhooks, and that got changed and people got really shitty about that. But the people were upset not just because some of them had dropped hundreds of dollars buying a busted ass army. They were upset because they were like, I really want to play them, and that's the only way I can make them work.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. I think being able to give someone the traditional fantasy trope of dwarf in armor, but then back it up with the skyboat bubble balloon men, you kind of like, but also it's Age of Sigmar, so it's going to get real weird real soon. And in 4 days, you're going to get an eel right up here. So get ready, baby. So Nathan, what are your thoughts? KO?
Oh, really strong contenders. I'm going to give them 8.5.
Okay. Dan, what are you thinking?
Honestly, they get a 9.5 from me. They're only missing 0.5 because I'd love one more unit in their model range.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so next up, Dan, obviously we know you're going to give these a 10 already because you're a big elf lover, but it's the Lumineth Realm Lords. A traditional looking fantasy army, I'd say, actually, on the elven front. And then they get real weird real quick, which I think is kind of like a nice kind of surprise. Like if you saw the starter box and you were like, oh yeah, I'm really into elves, that's fun. And then you see it and it's like, it's in the starter box. You've got the cavalry and the spearmen and you're like, traditional fantasy, I'm all about this. Maybe the Calathar's a bit weird and you're like, I'm kind of into that. Or Light of Eltharion. But then the guy in the shop's like, oh, well, after I got this, what would I collect next? And then they show you Cow Mountains. And you're like, oh, shit. Like, that really sneaks up on you real fast.
I love that. You're like, cool, I got this. But see, the thing is, though, between the Dawn Riders, the Sentinels, and the Wardens, and the Stone Guard as well, if you don't like the aesthetic of the Cow Mountains, you don't need them.
Yep.
I think that's the nice thing about a bit of the range is if you only want elves, you have enough range, style, and gameplay just to stick with that.
Yeah. I honestly think that they're a good starter army for that exact reason. In that they've got like key, like they're interesting, but they look traditional, but you can get real freaky straight away out the box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and even the Calathar's like a weird, like a weird enough model to kind of, they do that thing that KO do, but you know. Nathan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd agree with everything except for the Stone Guard. Their hats are just ridiculous. Why would anybody buy those things? If I was looking at a new game and I saw somebody wearing a hat like that, I would turn around and walk out. after I'd slapped the shop assistant around the chops because
That is.
those hats are... What is that? That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. They need to take a step back and have a good, strong look at themselves because those hats, what is going on? Where
agree.
did they even... What is that?
Where did they even get the
So
hats
as
from?
long as they didn't put the stone guard in the box, I'm in.
All right. So D&D Odd Job, thank you very much for subscribing, by the way, for the first time ever. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the team. Dan, you got any other thoughts to make on the LRL before you give it a score?
I would say that they kind of do for me what the bloody KO do, and that even if you look at the Sentinels, the fact that they've got their elves with bows, but then you look at their bow and it's like that 3-string thing they've got going on too. It's cool that it gives you traditional, but it gives you the weird of where we are and what we're playing, as opposed to you're not going to get high elves from Warhammer Fantasy. You're getting pointy elves in Age of Sigmar.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so what scores are you guys giving it?
Oh, okay. I'm going to give him an 8.5. I really dig where, like, as a starter box, I think they're in the same way as KO. They're in a good place. The only problem is they don't have much hero flexibility. Like, your starter box would, if you were trying to tempt someone in with enough weird that they're interested, but not so much weird they don't want to do it, it'd be like, I don't know, a unit of Wardens, a unit of Sentinels and Dawn Riders, and then either a Light of Elfarian or a Cathola, and that would be where you'd have to go. But it's not like you can't create your champion on a horse stabbing people with a spear just yet.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, fair point. Nathan?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously there's still some more to come for these guys, isn't there? There's all the who's the other dude? Teclis's brother, Tyrion. Yeah. So there's probably all of his stuff coming out at some point. So there's probably more complete when the other half has come. It is still a good looking army as long as they don't put the stone guard in. So yeah, I'll give them 8.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So next up is one that I think it might tip it for being in here, is the Seraphon. Super strong aesthetic. Dinosaurs, magic, laser beams on dinos. It taps into loads of memes that already exist. There are frogs, which are hilarious, that do magic, which is really funny. They trigger Nathan, which makes everything loads better. They've got like the Fightosaurus. They've got like a really super wide range. They've got like the foot guys and everything else. And they've obviously all got the monsters, which are kind of small and weirdly derpy compared to other monsters generally, which is a bit of a negative. But overall, got a really strong aesthetic, and a big energy. Like, the people react to dinosaurs like super well. And I think that Battle Tome's always sold really well. I think the models have always sold really well, no matter how. So Seraphon's a big shout, in my opinion. The only thing is most of the models are older. Yeah.
Well, like you look at Croxagore versus like Skinks, I would say have stood the test of time. But then you look at Saurus Warriors versus Saurus Guard. I think Saurus Guard looks spectacular, but Saurus Warriors look weirdly spindly. Like they look like they can barely fit the bones inside of their skin, let alone anything else.
Yeah, they need. I think Scott B in the chat saying they actually need an update, and I would actually really agree with that. Like salamanders look like awful. Even some of the older Finecast characters are really starting to show their age. Like the Ashloth Banner Bearer is cool, but could really do with, like, if you look at the how well the Total War franchise has handled Saurus. Saurus are terrifying in Total War. Like they look so hulking, they look so badass. But then in those models, but I guess really it's about the aesthetic and what you could put in that starter box, and you can put some great stuff in there. Pterodons and Ripidactyls, they're fairly new. Bastillodons, fairly new. Like that.
Saurus Knights, everybody loves the way they look.
No one on Earth likes how they look. Oh, and D&D Oddjob, our new member, welcome. I started painting Seraphon and ended up dropping the army because the models were so annoying to assemble. Okay, all right. I didn't know. I don't know which models. I guess if you do enough skinks, that's annoying as all hell, right? So what do you two think?
I think. Well, the tricky thing is, like, you look at, say, the Start Collecting Seraphon box, and the Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur, spectacular model, really, really cool. Then you also have Knights in there and Saurus Warriors, which are like, oh no. You look at the Skink box, though, you've got Laser Lizard, you've got Pterodons, and then you've got Skinks, and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool. You can the quality of the other Skinks kind of pulls up the Skinks there. So it's a tricky one for me. I see what you're saying, and I genuinely dig it. I think there's a little bit too much. You would almost be putting the best bits in the box is the problem, and then after that, where do you go?
Yeah, I guess it goes into the older models at that point, or whether or not you're a fan of that aesthetic, which is like, but it's a big aesthetic. Like if you the artwork, the style, you just say dinosaurs, it's like dinosaurs, rah! They're like people get it. Like, and then it's got a really fun lore you can fall into.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, dinosaurs, awesome. It's like, well, actually, do you know that they live in ziggurats in space? And they're like, no, but tell me more.
Yeah, let's do this. Yeah. I genuinely, I think they're really cool. I do dig them. It's just, that aging range pulls them a little bit for me. But
it's a fair point. Yeah. Final Cookies put a great link to third-party alternate sculpts. I'm always into those. I'm going to check that out now. Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a very strong trope. It's going to depend against what they're fighting against, I guess, a lot. They'd be quite cool fighting against the chaos sort of stuff. And probably even some of the destruction stuff. You know, if you had dinosaurs versus orcs, could be quite a fun game for people that are starting out to play. But yeah, again, they've not had anything really new since the end times. Although the end times stuff is great, but then does it scale in all right? Like if you put a brute up against a Bastillodon, the brute's towering over the Bastillodon. It's like, come here, you little turtle thing. So it's just it be slightly out of scale with the rest of the game, but yeah, it's not that bad. So yeah, they are, but like you say, it's a super strong trope, a super popular thing. Loads of people really like dinosaurs, and it could be something that would be grabbing people's attention.
It's quite unique as well, which I dig.
Yeah. Okay, so Seraphon next up. Points for Seraphon. Sorry,
some numbers. Yeah.
It's
a tough one to point up because the models let them down, even though because you really want to be showing off your new plastics, and they just if you're in your starter set, I mean, these guys versus like Ninetort or something like that could be fun, but I'm going to give it 8. Just because the trope is so strong. I just think the models, if the models are better, and a bit more, 7.5 maybe. I'll stick with 8.
Yeah, I'm going straight down the middle with an 8 as well. I think they're awesome, they're beautiful, but that dating is starting to catch up with them, and you can't do like your Saurus with your Skinks side by side and then have them beside some Pterodon riders, because you then compare the Skinks and you're like, And if you have your Old Blood on Carnosaur next to some Saurus, you're like, he looks wicked. They look like they've skipped like leg, hip, and torso day and arm day. They skipped all the days except for head day. You know those videos where people put the strap around their head and just like practice their head banging with weights? That's all the Saurus have been doing. So that for me is where it holds them back from being like a 9 or a 10.
Okay. All right. So there's 2 left. There's Stormcast next. Stormcast and their aesthetic. I think that's the kind of key point here, is what is their aesthetic like? How is their aesthetic going? Right?
What
We talked about it a bit at the top of the show, I guess.
It's cool. It's okay. Here's the thing I would say. It's really hard to relate to. And that if you're trying to grab people and get them in there, you see, say, sky dwarfs. If we were to put them in a box, or if you were to put, I know that it seems stupid to say you could relate to Seraphon, but they seem alive. The Stormcast, you look at them, and even without helmets on, they seem like automata, and it's hard to relate to that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you're right with like if somebody's just glancing at the box art as a start off, they it's hard to relate to them unless you look at more like the Varangard sort of stuff where you've got faces out, and then you know that these are like knights and they're on cool griff chargers and stuff like that. So I think, but if you're just looking at like the regular dudes, or maybe the Secretors as well, the newer stuff where you've got the heads out and you can see they're like noble human type humanoid creatures that are, fighting for light and truth or whatever, then there is that. But if particularly the older stuff where it was where they had the face masks up, it was very hard. If at first glance it wouldn't be something that grabbed you, and I just think it works better. I think in the Varangard's sort of side where you've got creatures around them, and it sort of breaks up that harshness of the
in the Vanguard part of it, the Vanguard chamber. Yeah, I see your point.
I dig like the Ordinators, where you've got it's something so small, but exposing their arms. I wish that I wish they would show a little bit more flesh. Sounds creepy, isn't? Because when they're all just sealed in armor, that's all you get. If you were to give them a little bit more flesh, a little bit more humanity, I think I would find them more engaging in that regard. I think.
Okay, yeah, I think that they're too inhuman. Like, it's very much like what we said about the Osiarchs, right? Where it's like, but they do have a nice range. Like, I really, really like Incanters on Battle Cats. I think they're a thing, but they're not a thing. And you could include them in a box, but I don't know. I think the inhumanity means that you don't connect with them.
If you're putting humans in a box, it's because they're the people I relate to, right? It's because they're free guild. Like I remember the old Empire soldiers versus orcs from Warhammer.
Yes, it's true. That's super true. Nathan, what are you going to give them out of 10? Oh no. We lost him at Stormcast. No. Hold on.
got kicked out there.
You're back, Nathan.
Sorry, that lost my sound there. All I was saying is that when you've got humans in a box, it's to relate to them. And in the old Empire versus Orcs box, you had Empire and Orcs, and so the Orcs were the big, intense, doomed, choppy monsters, and the humans were the defenders of life and that desperation that you could connect to. It's really hard to connect to, really, really hard to connect to the Stormcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think like we said, possibly if you put them in a cities box and then they're up, with humans, and that you can relate them to the humans. They're like, they're part of the human endeavor there. Or if you went with some of the newer stuff like the dudes on the Battle Cats or the Vanguard Wing, where they've got the creatures around them, that's quite a cool box. I do like the Vanguard box, where they've got Griffhounds and Aether Wings, as well as the Raptors and all of that. So yeah, it's not terrible, but it's not as engaging as you would like it to be, especially if it's a poster boy type thing.
There's a perfect example of what I'm talking about in one box. If you look at the Celestar Ballista, look at the two crew. You have one, they've both got their arms exposed, one without a helmet, and it's really, you look at that model and you're like, cool, I engage with her. You've got another one, arms exposed with a helmet on, and you look at that model and you're like, I feel nothing towards you. And I think that for me is the like an encompassing criticism I would have of their range.
And also, like I feel like it's the same story with Marines, right? But with Marines, you get the backstory. Like you see a salamander, you understand. You see a white scar, you get it. Like you get like it already passes across to you. But with like Stormcast, they haven't like envisioned the story enough. The story's not a big enough deal. So if I see them in non-gold blue, which I think is Hammers of Sigmar, maybe, then I'm like, okay, they're one of the other ones. Like, okay. So Stormcast aesthetic, like, what are you going to give the aesthetic score?
I'm going to give him a 5. It's not a bad aesthetic. It just doesn't jump out of the box at me.
Okay. All right. Okay. It's not bad. So 5. Nathan?
I still think it's quite a strong aesthetic. And they're, especially the newer stuff where you've got the heads out and everything, I think they're fine. I'd say 6.5.
6.5. Okay. All right, fair enough. So then the last one, big one, Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth. They've got a big vibe, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Huge fan of this army. I think it's one of the things when you show new people, they always are drawn towards the tree people. Wood elves are a big thing that people, I think, just always like generally. So I could see that. Obviously, everyone's a bit of a hippie nowadays as well, so they love themselves a good tree. And
they're also completely organic, which is wicked.
Yeah. Like they're also like you get it. Like the whole story is told in the model, right? They're tree people, so like you're like, cool, I get this. So I feel like they're a really strong contender for a starter box. Ignoring their power level at the minute, I think that they are like, they just look brilliant. And then when you break it down, if you do Dryads, Kurnoth Hunters, but then if you do Tree Revenants, you go, ooh, I see something different there. Like there's an elf inside the tree. Like it's time to get a bit spooky and weird. I think I think they're a big shout, and I think they've got a strong vibe. Yeah.
Oh, completely. I think the same thing. I'm not even particularly a fan of the army, but you even look at like Tree Lords, Tree Lord Ancient, and Spirit of Durthu. You've got 3 models that could be identical but aren't. And in the game, all 3 of them play differently as well. Then you've got kind of like Drycha, who is like this weird, intense conglomeration, like step between the Tree Lord and the Kurnoth Hunters. It's a spectacular, in the same way that I was saying that I love the KO for their all like that mechanical vibe that builds off dwarves. This builds off elves, like the very typical like elves in the trees thing, but takes it that step further. So it's familiar enough to let you kind of jump into the game, but it's doing it in the Age of Sigmar way.
Yeah.
I'd agree. I think they're you've got a nice mix of models. The only thing is probably that maybe the Dryads are not as up to date as you like them to be, but yeah, they're not terrible. They're a decent enough model. That you've got the Tree Lords and stuff, which were all end time stuff, I think, and then you've got the newer kits, the Tree Revs and the Spike Revs, and Alariel is such a good model, and Drycha and all of that. So yeah, it's a strong model range, and it's a very strong trope as well, and aesthetic. The spirits of the trees. It tie people to the Ents in Lord of the Rings and that sort of stuff. So very very popular type trope fantasy. So yeah, strong.
Yeah, I think Sylvaneth are for a big vibe, big vibe. A bit wooden for me. So what are you guys going to give? What are you guys going to give it as a score?
I'm going to go 8.5 because I think they're pretty tasty.
I'm going to give them a 9. You've got multi-kits in the Dryads and the Spite Revs, but they're both really different. Like it's not like, say, Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter. You've got all different weapon options on the Kurnoth Hunters, which actually make each of the units look different. It doesn't just look like a stick with a scythe on the end or a sword on the end. You got different stuff in the trees. I just think that they're spectacular for that reason.
Yeah, big fan. Thank you to Drucifer91 in the chat for subscribing. Big love to you. So I'm just going to quickly hit you with a curveball. Real quick curveball. I'm sorry, we have got one more. They're short. They're angry. They cast magic. They're Chaos Dwarves.
Oh, that homebrew that you made up.
No, real army, bit of Chaos Dwarves. Pow, 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 pow. Introduce people to like dwarves, but doing magic. Who would have thought it? Completely different to normal. Not right. War machines, monsters. Can I interest you in fire demons? Bulls, somehow, for some reason. Not explained in Age of Sigmar right now. Nathan, thoughts?
You want to put that in a box?
Yeah. Weird. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna write down. I'm just gonna write down Forge World.
If they were plastic and mainstream, fair enough. But they're some sort of niche, weird collector's thing from a different place of the planet. So
I'll just write down 10 out of 10
Sorry,
for aesthetic.
fail.
Strong
Fail.
aesthetic.
If you really want to break it down, their two core units look pretty much identical. Anything that you would have to criticize Fire Slayers, you would be criticizing yourself for. Dwarves with magic, is that something that people who like fantasy want? No, they don't. There are some traditions that shan't be broken. They're made out of resin, so if you breathe it, it's going to kill you and you're going to die. I'm pretty sure that it would have to say that on the box. Like, if you build this army, it will murder you before you even finish. They don't even have big hats anymore. They now have weird, stupid little helmets with one eye hole. Can you say depth perception? No, you can't, because it doesn't have a mouth slit to speak out of. I just think their aesthetic's terrible, just like the designer and anyone who plays them.
So big 10. All right, excellent. All right, so let me tell you what your highest score each is. How's this sound? So
God.
The highest score.
I feel like this is going to go bad for me.
Dan, your highest score was KO.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
so that's what you gave to your highest one. Nathan, you've hit Squigs and Sylvaneth both at a 9. So those are your two standout ones. Dan, Dan, this was you. Sorry, so sorry. Dan, you gave Squigs and Sylvaneth a 9. Nathan, you gave KO a 9.5. Is that right? Yeah.
No, I gave KO a 9.5.
All right. Okay. Something along those lines then. So that means, oh no, Nathan, you gave Squigs a 9, and Sylvaneth a 9. Yeah.
Did I? Cool. Fair enough. I can't remember.
I think I gave Sylvaneth a 9, and I think he gave them an 8.5.
I think I've written them all down. I've actually done the work as well, and somehow I've still messed it up. I'd like everyone to know that. It's literally 2 columns. I don't know how. So I guess the real point is what would you guys put in? You two get to design your starter box. Twitch chat, you also get to design your starter box. Based on the conversation we've had, who are you going to play against? What are you going to put inside your starter box?
I think I can do mine.
Go on then.
Straight off the bat. Okay, so I'm going to go with KO, because for what we've discussed, or maybe I'm biased, but it gives you a really cool intro into the game. It's giving you the like fantasy, but away into the Age of Sigmar side of things. And I was tossing up between Gitz or Sylvaneth as what I would put in the other side. I actually think Sylvaneth would be too much. You'd be too much metallic, too much like that, and then the other side wouldn't be. It'd be too much on the other side of things, in the organic side. So I would actually go Gitz. I'd go KO versus Gitz would be my starter box, because I think you've got the order and the structure of the KO versus the crazy manic energy of the Gitz. You've got awesome mechanical engineering versus awesome like growth and flowing like robes and things like that. Visually, you've got the two core cornerstones of fantasy stuff, but in a very Age of Sigmar way, and that's why I do it.
Okay, all right, Nathan, what would you go for? I don't have any. Dan, I'm 100% with you, by the way. Like, so about it. Nath, what do you
Let's see
think?
that box.
Yeah, it's a tough one. What would I choose? I would possibly go with. I think I would like to see Nurgle versus Gitz or Iron Jaws, maybe. I think that would be quite cool. Yeah, I'll go Nurgle versus Iron Jaws. I think that would be a cool combo. You've got some. It's pretty green on both sides, but
It's very
I just
green.
think, you've got real rusted armor on both sides as well. But yeah, that's what I'm going for. Not going for the contrast. I'm going for the coolness of these big hulking brutes versus these rather thick fellas.
Yeah, okay. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Cleansing them with their vitality versus thickness of them.
Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing like Lumineth versus Nurgle or Lumineth versus Iron Jaws as well, because then you'd have small.
Oh, stole it off me.
efficient-
That's
Oh,
mine.
really?
No, yeah, Lumineth.
right.
Lumineth versus I think Lumineth versus Iron Jaws is one shout, with my other one being Sylvaneth versus Ghosts. Like,
Oh, that'd be a cool box.
I think because I think with the Lumineth you get orcs, and you get elves in Lumineth versus Iron Jaws. I think that's solid, and that really pitches it to you. But like, if you want to go a bit weirder, like not quite as fantasy, and then a little bit less relatable, then I think Ghosts versus Sylvaneth would look really good, and I think that would also be really friendly. Like like the Ghosts look quite scary, but Sylvaneth is like the big life punch, and it's that life death box, which I think would be fun to look at.
Yeah, if I was doing Lumineth, I'd put them up against the Gits. I think that would be great. Squigs running at Lumineth, and yeah, that'd be fun. Proper fun.
You just want to roll squig dice at all of those long breakable pikes.
Yeah,
I reckon that Sylvaneth versus Ghost box would be wicked, because even just looking at the textures in there, you've got bark, and you've got like the tree spirit things versus like all of the flowing ectoplasmic robes and stuff on the other side. That'd be a really awesome box to look at visually.
I think, yeah, and I think also like it hits like some of the stuff we haven't talked about is the psychology of who we're trying to pitch to, and if they're new people, like if they're not us. Like, I think us, we would like it, but like I think for maybe a group of people who maybe would be like I think it might be quite a friendly box for ladies. I think generally, I think that they're generally quite popular amongst that. I think it'd be great for kids. Like, I think it's like got like a bunch of like really great looking stuff, and that's really key. But it's fantasy-esque, but it's not necessarily like war-esque. It's not like fantasy war, like sword and board, let's fight it out, which the orc. And so if I was going for the safety bet, I would obviously do Lumineth versus Iron Jaws. But if I was like the young hip marketing department, then yeah, we'd like go for a decaf latte, and then we'd put some ghosts versus some trees.
And license to print money.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be the one for me. So Azrak in the chat said he'd go for Cities plus Stormcast with Slaves to Darkness. The final cookie said Super Macho, but not good. Oh, the Art of War 40k is raiding us with 52 people. Thanks, Art of War 40k. Who is that? Is that Diffie? Is that who is it? Big love to everyone for joining us. Thanks. We're right at the end of the show, so
you literally joined just after the wrap up as well. Nailed it.
Yeah. So yeah, right at the end. So I appreciate you being here. But our 40k show is on Thursday night. If you guys want to join us for that, yeah, this is it that we've done. I don't know where to take this conversation now, and now the raid's thrown me. Oh, it's Siegler, Lennon, and Perry. Oh my God, that's actually 3 very well-known people. Very nice to see you all. Big love, big fans. First-time caller, long time. I doubt you're a long-time listener, but big love to you all. I can't wait. Are you guys going to be at WTC next year? Because I'll be covering your matches, and I'm very excited about that. Yeah. Start saying nice things to me now, so I say nice things about you on the telly. That's the key part.
Yes. The honest wargamer, very susceptible to bribes. Just easily bribed.
Well, I hope I see you anyway. If not, I'll see you at some event. You guys are great. Oh, thanks for the raid. That's really nice. Shut up, do you listen? You guys are great. Anyway, right. Dan, Nathan, it's been great seeing you both. Let's fuck off now.
Yeah.
It's been a lovely one. I mean, obviously, as we said at the top of the show, Nathan and I are the door bitches of Age of Sigmar, but also of your lives. So if you ever need to know that you look good for a night out, drop us at us on Twitter, and we'll let you know if we'd let you in the club.
Yeah. Deal. Yeah.
Club.
Yeah, any club, Nate, or a dungeon.
Oh yeah.
All right, okay. Well, if you have been listening this entire time, Twitch chat, big love to you. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to join me again tomorrow for the 40k Adjacent show with Peter, the Falcon, Calissimo, and the wonderful Val Heffelfinger. And we'll get a JVP update. Of course, thank you to everyone else working on Patreon and to my podcast bros. I hope you stay hydrated. Drink that water. Stay well. Stay healthy. Very much like is anyone a fan of Farscape? There's a really great episode 2, where you have to keep punching someone till the blood runs clear. It's the same sort of thing, but just keep drinking water till your pee runs clear. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, that's the key part. It's a very specific Farscape reference that's going to make 3 people laugh.
I haven't watched it in a long time, but I'll go back. I'll go back to figure that out.
Yeah, it's okay. It's episode 2 if you're interested. Just saying. When they get the gauntlets, no one cares. I'm going. All right. If you guys got any shout outs before we go.
Shout out to dwarves, just better than elves.
Rubbish.
I'm with you on that. And Squigs as well, kicking elves in the head.
All right.
Aesthetically and physically. Though the elves for dwarves do have to come down, like take a knee so that their head is within range of the boot. But if you chop them through the middle with an axe, their head ends up on the ground pretty quickly.
Yeah, stomp on it then. Yeah, cool.
It does. Well, thank you everyone for listening. Please do join us again tomorrow and have a great day. Look after yourselves. Goodbye.
Ta-ra, ta-ra.